Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our third day of the International Women's Day Caribbean Tech Summit. My name is Maria O'Brien, and I am a Google Women Tech Makers Ambassador for Trinidad and Tobago and one of the organizers for this summit. I'm here representing all of my partners who have been instrumental in making sure that we not only pull things together to make this happen, but also in strategizing where we as a collective of diversity and inclusion leaders and change makers are going to go. So we're going to dive right into it with the amazing Lauren Boniface. Um, Lauren is the founder of I Am Lauren B Limited, and her topic today is when creativity and technology meet. I'm very excited to learn more about I Am Lauren B. So, Lauren, why don't you give us a little bit of an introduction as to what your company does? I have to admit, you had the most interesting company name, as in you're just like, I am Lauren. I want to know more immediately. It immediately sparks that curiosity about what it might be about. So tell us a little bit about that.
Right, so I'm not sure if you can hear me properly, but it's a bit lagging from my side.
That's okay. We hear you fine. You look amazing. So please continue.
Yeah, thank you very much. So yeah, I am Lauren B is the name of my company because this is who I am. But I'm also the founder of the collabstudio.co, which is a consultancy that helps brands and artists collaborate through digital projects. And yeah, so I've been working in the space in digital and in strategy in the creative industry for the past 10 years. I'm passionate about art, passionate about technology. I like the combination of creativity and technology together. I love to see the possibilities, especially for the Caribbean. So yeah, I'm really, really excited about that.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. Hearing you talk about it like that, like I do think, me myself, I'm also an artist. So I think the amount of creativity today is just gonna blow our audience away. So, with no further ado, why don't you go ahead into your amazing talk, which just to remind our audience, her talk today is when creativity and technology meet. Take it away, Lauren.
Thank you so much. So I prepared a few slides. So I'm going to be sharing my screen. I'm going to be sharing a lot, I hope, some inspiring case study with you. So hopefully you will be inspired from that. So, hold on. I just need to do a little change because I cannot use Keynote. Hold on.
We're not going anywhere.
Yeah, that's what my slides are in Keynote, so I just need to transpose them to PDF so I can share that. So you
That's
might.
fine. Well, that's okay. In the meantime, I think what we can do is share a little bit of what you had shared with us. So I'm just going to read what Lauren sent to the summit. We loved it so much. So she says, from Lauren, I believe that technology has the power to bring people together, to break barriers, and allow women and the Caribbean diaspora. Let me add myself to the screen so it doesn't look like you're talking to yourself. um,
Yeah.
yeah, technology brings exceptional opportunities for the creative industry, for the creators and artists. We are now entering the creative economy. I love that. That's the second time I've heard that term, the creative economy, where creators of all shapes and forms can make a difference from a click from the palm of their hands. That is so true. The metaverse, NFTs, digital currency are all elements that we, the Caribbean, can be a pioneer of completely the entire spirit behind today. The richness of talents and culture in the Caribbean is unmatched. Our diversity is unmatched. That is 100% true. Brands and companies are now making an effort to be more inclusive and accessible thanks to technology, and probably also thanks to the pandemic and some of its impacts on our communities. The opportunities that will unfold from what is coming next in Web 3.0 are yet to be explored, and we are only scratching the surface. But I believe that women in the Caribbean will be the pioneer of change in this new world. Yes, everything that you said there is 100% something I agree with. I think between yourself and your young Chi, Anushka Vanasahai, Sonai, Camille Selvon, who's also going to be here. We have some Amanda Spann from Tech Beach Retreat. The lineup of speakers today is really, we have a gender audio. I love the fact that we have an audio speaker today, like people who are representing each different industry. So just let me know when you're ready, Lauren, because I can sidebar for a very long time if you don't stop me.
I cannot. I'm really sorry, but I cannot hear you very well. It's really lagging.
That's
So
okay.
I can hear like some bits and bobs, but not everything. Can you hear me fine?
Yes, I hear you perfectly.
That's so weird. Okay. Yeah. So it's really a space that I'm really passionate about. Because I've worked with a lot of creative in the past 10 years. And yeah, I've just seen, like, when I travel to the Caribbean, especially, I've just seen like so many talents. And I was like, they are hidden because they are not online. And I was like, this is impossible. We cannot have so many talents in the Caribbean and not being able to have a bigger impact on in the world, really, because for digital, there's no limit. So that's something that I'm really passionate about.
100%. So, looking forward to your presentation. I'm gonna let you take the stage now.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much. So you can see my screen.
Yes.
All right, awesome. Okay, so we're going to talk about when creativity and technology meets, what kind of magic can happen. So I don't know if you know, but there is a tax called the tax of being unremarkable. I don't know if you're paying that tax, if you're aware of that tax, but when you create something or when you do something that is unremarkable that no one is paying attention to, well, there is a cost associated to it. And Steve Jobs said many months ago that the best way to create values is to connect creativity with technology. And I believe that this is even truer today. I guess now we are really in a space where creativity and technology meets together and just, I mean, we are just scratching the surface of what can be possible. Um, so a brief intro about me. I'm Lauren B. I'm a digital strategist. I'm a brand consultant for creative businesses. And I'm also the founder of the Collab Studio. The Collab Studio, which is a consultancy where I help artists and brands collaborate to create digital concept and digital projects together. I would say my life changed, my perspective changed when I went to the Futuroscope in France in 1994. So I was really young, but I went with my parents, and I just felt at that point that I was stepping into the future. And I was like, wow, there's so many media things. So I went to a cinema that was in 3D. It was just amazing. And from that moment onwards, I was like, okay, the future is amazing. The possibilities are amazing. And I was just really attracted by anything tech driven, media driven, future driven. I've been really interested by that since that day. And then the second time my life changed is when so I'm from Martinique. I lived in London for many years, for 10 years. And then I went to Trinidad to work, and I traveled a bit throughout the Caribbean. And this is when I launched my consultancy and worked with hundreds of artists, designers, and creators. And I realized that there were so many talents in the Caribbean that was hidden, but something needed to be do. I needed to do something about it. Um, and then since then, yes, so that's a brief overview of what I've done. So I started as a graphic designer. Then 2010, I worked for 10 years in ad agencies in London. Then moved to Trinidad to work in agency. Then I worked as an agent for artists. And then just recently, I launched the Collab Studio. So yeah, I've been in the space for a minute. So I was telling you about the tax of being unremarkable. So what is the secret, or what is a combination to be remarkable? I believe it's when culture, creativity, and technology meet, and I believe that this is where we have something that is truly amazing. So when we have something, a concept, an idea that is relevant in culture, that is extremely creative, and that is powered by technology. And the thing is that culture is moving faster than ever nowadays. Especially in the Caribbean, we have like a myriad of subcultures, each moving at incredible speeds. So from the different culture in the Caribbean, but we are also influenced by global cultural events. If you haven't seen Rihanna pregnant yet, here we go. Here you go. You can see her now. But also global events, global cultural events are also influencing the culture that we live in the Caribbean. And in businesses, or in various businesses, there's also many barriers to innovation. Innovation and creativity is not always a priority for businesses. Often there's not the budget to do so. There's not enough headspace for people to have time to think about innovative solution, to think about creative ideas outside of the box. There's no strategy, there's no collaboration, so there's a lot of barriers for innovation. Meaning that brands actually and businesses are facing two major challenges in this digital age and space. So one is how to create content that will keep pace with culture, which is moving so fast. You know, you have the production cost and process, the various people involved. So how can an agency, how can a brand can create content that goes at the pace of culture? And then secondly, how to personalize that content for many different customers, so the brand and the content remain relevant for our audience. So it's basically a constant battle, a constant race between production, tech, and culture. These are things that are constantly racing against each other. And I would say that the car in blue is culture, and that culture is always winning, because anyone can have the most amazing creative ideas, the most amazing technology in place. If it's not relevant to the people we are talking to, it's not relevant to their culture, to their day-to-day life, is not going to be remarkable. So culture is really the one that we need to keep up with. And who are the creators of culture today? These are the DJs, the artists, the TikTokers, the designers, the dancers, the YouTubers, the bloggers, the gamers, the developers. So these are the one creating the culture. They are the one dictating if something is cool or something is not cool. They are the one saying if I don't know, we all need to be navigating in Web3 or not. So they are really the holder of the culture. And that's why we can see now the rise of the creator economy, which I'm extremely passionate about. But the creator economy is basically an economy which is built around creator. And we're seeing more and more, we're seeing also platform in media creating more and more solutions for creators to build businesses around their talent. And when we look at the evolution of how things have evolved for the past 10 years, it totally makes sense. We've seen in 2000 that we've seen the rise of social media with, any user became a creator in a sense by posting content on the social media. Then in 2010, we've seen like those users that were able to create content and become creator. Then they became influencer. They managed to build community and audience around the content that they were creating, and they managed to get paid for it. And then in the late 2010, we've seen like the rise of creators. So all these users that then had an audience and then a community, they decided to seek independence from social media and just create their own world being independent from businesses and creating direct monetization from fans, from their community, through subscription, through product creation, and so on. And now in 2020, what we're seeing is a creator economy, meaning that the line between the communities, the fans, and the creator are actually blurred. And we're seeing more and more a creator at the center of community ownership. And all of this is facilitating with the rise of cryptocurrency, digital and technology, and so on. So we have the creator that are deciding what they want to do on the platform and dictating what the platform should do, which is an amazing time to be in. The thing is, brands cannot buy coolness, right? If you're a brand, if you're a business, you cannot just wake up one day and say, hey, give me some coolness. I want to be cool. But they want to be cool. They want to be loved. They want to attract people. So what they can do, they can earn what I like to call cultural currency. And brands want this currency because it elevates them. It makes them more attractive. It gets them to tap into some niche and to some audiences that they might not be able to attract otherwise. And this is where we see a lot of collaboration between brands and artists and singers. So we have an example here from the Caribbean, Caribbean Shantia and Karen Dubois. They created all these series of videos, all these series of content, of songs, the bespoke music that they created. So by them associating them with these creators, they look cooler, they look more attractive. People want to drink more Carib than another competitors. And then if we go elsewhere, so so that's a collaboration with Louis de Guzman, which is an illustrator from the US. I can't remember where exactly, but he's an illustrator, and he did a collaboration with New Balance. And what happened is New Balance and with de Guzman collaborated, and he created a collection of trainers just for New Balance. So it was a collection of trainers where it was basically influenced by his colors, the color that he used, the style that he used. And what I found interesting, what I found even more interesting, that they didn't just create just one product. They also created an event. They also created an exhibition. They created like a whole universe with that artist, with DJs and cocktails and all that. And suddenly you just give them like this cool factor that they're after. Another example is Desperados Collective. So Desperados is collaborating with a bunch of artists and creators with a collective, so designers and illustrators. And I think they do that every year, I believe. But what they do is they commission artists to create things on their behalf, right? So they will create a bunch of content, they will create some special collection, they will create some NFTs, some digital creation, and then they will use this creation to do to either put those creation on the bottles, so the bottle looks a bit better, or they will create some exhibition using the work of these creators. So again, that's a good example of how brands want to go with creators, collaborate with creators. But then what happens when creativity and technology meet, right? So far we've seen what happened when one brand wants to be cooler and have this cool factor, this cultural currency, and work with artists and creator, which showcase the power of the creator economy. But when we bring tech into it, this is where the magic happens. So for example, we had the Meta Fashion Week, the Metaverse Fashion Week that happened not so long ago. And I could have put another example here, but I know that Anna is going to talk later on, so I will let her talk more about that. But this was basically the first fashion week happening in the Metaverse. In the Metaverse, meaning that over 70 brands and designers were able to exhibit their collection, able to showcase their new clothing collection through digital art. So there was like some NFTs, there was some videos people could purchase some virtual outfits as well. And the power of this type of event is that anyone in the world, doesn't matter what they look like, no matter if you are connected to the fashion world or not, could participate in this Meta Fashion Week. And you could decide what you have, but having like a different avatar and so on. You could wear like designer clothes. So for me, this is an amazing demonstration of what creativity and technology can do. Another example is a Grammy Week. So in a similar fashion, the Grammy Week enters the metaverse. So it happened on Roblox, which is a gaming platform, initially gaming platform. But the whole Grammy Award was also happening virtually, sponsored by MasterCard in this virtual world. And I like also to put the words of this president because it just showcases what brands are after, what businesses are after when they do this kind of collaboration. In this case, they were really wanted to innovate because they wanted to reach their audience, so music lovers, wherever they are. So they know that gaming platform is becoming one of the most important music discovery channel for loads of younger audience. They want to remain relevant. They want to keep engaging and keep growing their business. So they decided to have a presence in the metaverse so they can connect with audiences around the world. Something else that is quite surprising and interesting is virtual influencers. So I'm sure you're all familiar with traditional influencers, but they're not virtual influencers. They look like real people. They have a social life. They have real brand partnership and real clothing and so on, but they are not real. They are virtual. They are made with CGI and various technology that make them look like real people. So the first one that I came across was Lil Michaela, and later on, some of us, so Shudru here was then featured by the brand Fenty later on. So yeah, they're starting to take over and start to compete with actual real people, which is interesting and scary at the same time. Samsung did a partnership with Shudu. So another this virtual influencer. So they launched their Z Flip mobile and decided to do the opening and the revealing of their Z Flip mobile with Shudu. So there was like a whole video where she was opening the mobile. They could dress her and her universe with the same style and fashion and identity of the product. So that's why she had like this shiny thing. That's why she wore a lot of purple because that's representing a bit the tech and the color of the Z Flip. So I would say the advantage of this virtual influencer is that we can kind of do whatever brand can do whatever they want with them. And so changing the universe, changing their style and so on to really reflect their brand identity. And then another example that I really like is NFT art. So Givenchy and Shito, who is like more like a street artist, they did a collaboration on their autumn fashion collection. So basically the artist Shito designed and input into their new collection. And what is interesting is that they took this collaboration a step further and they created NFT with that, meaning that they created a digital version of all of this design that people were able to purchase. And once they purchase this unique digital version of this collaboration, they were then given access to a series of advantages, and also all the profits from this collaboration were also given to a charity, I believe in the water, something to do with a charity, an organization. And yeah, so this NFT means that once someone order NFT, they are part of this Givenchy and Shito community, and then they have access to, they could have early access to special drops, to special access to special interviews, for example, special content. So just owning that piece of digital art A is unique because it was part of a unique collaboration, and B, give them access to certain advantages. So again, a way that technology is enhancing the partnership of brand artists and brand artists. So to summarize, so how to create remarkable content, I think you need to start from a community of creators. It's a community of creators that then need to be supported by brands and then powered or empowered by tech to really take it to the next level. So the process to be remarkable, if we were to simplify it, I would say first thing is to think about the community that you want to impact. Second is work really hard on your messaging. So what do you want to say? What do you want to tell them? Then it will be about finding the right collaborators, rather the right artists or the right tech partners. But yeah, finding the right collaborators to bring your messaging to life. Then it will be about co-creating a creative concept. So creating with the creator, creating with the artist, with the tech partners to create a unique and remarkable experience. And then the tech should be here to elevate the idea. So yes, the tech should really be there to elevate, to take it to the next step. But I think creativity needs to come first. And then I would say is about crafting an entire experience and then just go and test and launch and see what happens. Because we can never know. I mean, we are navigating in a world which is constantly changing. So it's better to just go test, try, and see what happens. Yeah, and that's it. And I just want to say, yes, the Collab Studio is a creative consultancy bringing artists together and aiming to create amazing, remarkable creative concepts. And I think that's it.
Wow, Lauren, that was amazing. Are you hearing me now? I think
Yeah. Oh, you couldn't?
yeah.
Yes, I can.
Okay, no, no, no. I'm just making sure
Yeah.
because I have all these awesome comments for you, but I didn't know if you would hear them. But yeah, I think that was a really thorough presentation. Thank you so much. It was really I think a good overview of all of the creative opportunity, and there's so much creative opportunity out there. And this isn't the first time within the space of the first 3 days of the summit that we've heard the term creative economy, right? So I do think this was a very informative talk. I do hope we will be resharing it again for the audience, for the white people who couldn't make it today. So thank you so much for an amazing talk, and we will see you in the next summit, hopefully telling us how all of these things advance. And so how would someone reach you, or how would someone get in touch with you if they want to be part of this collab project that you're doing?
Yeah, so I guess there is two ways. Can you either contact me directly on LinkedIn, Lauren Boniface, you can find me, or you go on thecollabstudio.co, and if you're an artist, you can subscribe as an artist, and if you're a brand and you want to explore possibilities, you can register as a brand, and yeah, we'll contact you and we'll create some magic together.
Oh, I love that. And so just message me the domain again. I think we already have it, and we'll make sure to put it in the YouTube chat for those who are following. Thanks so much, Lauren. This was great.
Thank you
Bye.
so much. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So Lauren was awesome. That was really amazing. I'm asking her just to share with us the domain. I actually think I might be interested in becoming part of the collab studio. So I'm sure there are others who are following and who will be following, who will be interested in that. There's definitely so much room for more collaboration here in the Caribbean. And just imagine what we would be able to accomplish if virtually we started to coordinate our efforts more. And I think that's one of the main things coming out of this summit is a huge need for greater organization, connection, and coordination. So, very, very, very impressed by that very thorough presentation and introduction to uh, to this topic. And Nicole Peter Patterson, one of our partners from Caribbean Girls Hack, said, "This is so awesome as it's the kind of innovations needed for the creative sector, especially for the Creative Caribbean project shared by UNESCO, EU, and CARICOM today." Yes, I actually missed that, Nicole. Thank you for bringing that up. The good thing is that it was recorded. So I think one of the things that we can do is just reshare the recording for those of us in the community. For those who missed it, today there was a really interesting creative Caribbean grant project that is being launched by UNESCO. One of the things we're trying to do with this summit this year is connect people to opportunities. So I think if one of the partners would send me the YouTube link, I will share it inside of the chat for the community. That would be awesome. Okay, so now we are going to go into our next speaker, who is none other than the amazing Anushka Varsha Sonai. And she is the president and founder of Creative Tech Hub Caribbean. She's also a recent regional award winner for her work in tech. And she is an amazing friend, amazing advocate, amazing champion of advancing IT in the Caribbean, especially with groundbreaking work that she has accomplished in Suriname. So I'm just going to read her bio really quickly. Anushka Sanai is the president of the Creative Tech Hub Caribbean, a cluster of companies with the mission to develop the creative technology ecosystem in the Caribbean. She is a serial entrepreneur and has co-founded 4 companies so far. It is her dream to create an ecosystem in the Caribbean where youth, women, and creative talents can have a flourishing career and solid future. The cluster collaboratively offers web development, mobile app development, social media services, and cloud services. And that's just a teeny tip of what Anushka has accomplished this year. Hopefully, we will hear more from her tomorrow if she is available. And if she's not, we will do a follow up interview with her. We are going to be starting an interview series at the end of this year's summit. So, just giving a little shameless plug there. Myself and Kimberly Demagny, who is one of our panelists today. So if we don't hear from Anushka tomorrow talking about her very important work, we will hear from her in our podcast series. So let's just take a minute while we get ready to hear Anushka give her amazing presentation. Okay, so let's see if I'm sharing.
I'm a serial social entrepreneur based. Hi everyone, my name is Anushka Sanai, and I'm a serial social entrepreneur based in Suriname. We use creativity and digital technology to transform companies, youth, and women. Our purpose is to integrate social good and profitable business practice. For us, this social enterprise approach is necessary to create a strong and sustainable future for the Caribbean. That is why we have evolved from a single for profit digital marketing agency into a cluster of for profit and non-profit entities that reinforce each other's work. At our core, we are future thinkers who use strategic foresight to prepare ourselves and our clients for the many scenarios of change in the age of the digital economy. For the last 7 years, I have been working on developing the digital entrepreneurship ecosystem in Suriname and the rest of the Caribbean. Hence, a great part of the work that I do is identified as public and civic contributions. I realized this much better when I recently won the Anthony Sabga Award for Excellence as the first person outside the English speaking Caribbean and the first person from Suriname. I am grateful for everyone who has been part of this journey and continues to support me in my work, my passion, and my new ideas, especially the one that look crazy at first, but only at first, and then everyone wants to do it. My work is split in three main categories. First, raising awareness about the potential of the digital economy to the several stakeholders like governments, NGOs, regional organizations, captain of industries of other sectors, financial and development institutions. And second, helping companies to strengthen their digital marketing and IT infrastructure practices and personnel, consulting businesses in how they can be more successful in the digital economy. And third, training individuals, mostly women and youth, to build a career in the ICT sector. One of the most consistent events in my journey of becoming a serial entrepreneur in an industry that is not so well developed yet in our part of the world has been the general lack of awareness and understanding how one can create social impact and run a successful commercial business too. How can you be a long term thinker and also enjoy short term benefits like profit, quality of life in the sense of living your best life, and doing purposeful work? While we have been able to pivot our strategy and evolve from a single for profit agency into a cluster of for profit and non profit entities, we see many traditional companies struggling to offer their employees purposeful work and to pivot to more contemporary ways of doing business. Additionally, many stakeholders are not able to adapt and change the status quo. This repeatedly made me think, is there a model or a system or a framework that describes our approach? In my search for that answer, I was introduced to futures thinking and strategic foresight. In this era of rapid and accelerating change, it is impossible to achieve true innovation without developing long-term thinking and uncovering alternative future possibilities. Most of the popular innovation tools and concepts used today were created when things were simpler and companies could operate with linear thinking. Today, the world is much more complex and moving at a rapid pace, causing them to be outdated. Gone are the days of practicing incremental innovation in order to simply strengthen core competences or gain strategic advantage in an already crowded market. Savvy thought leaders are setting the new tone of what is now being recognized as a fundamental paradigm shift in the way we approach innovation, embracing a move toward exponential and transformational change. When companies instill foresight and futures thinking into their innovation culture, they are better equipped to see the possibilities and opportunities that are on the horizon and seize them today. It is clear that leading organizations in these volatile and complex times require new approaches and mindsets. Today's business leaders must remain focused on what's next. In order to gain greater visibility about the future, what is needed is not a better crystal ball, but an instrument for building resilience, adaptability, and opportunity through recognition of emerging patterns. Futures thinking is that instrument, and strategic foresight provides the framework. Strategic foresight is a decades old discipline that allows us to create functional views of alternative futures and possibilities. Through this process, organizations are better prepared for potential threats and are able to capitalize on hidden opportunities. While no one can predict the future, foresight allows us to mine the external environment for trends and leverage those insights to create maps of the emerging landscapes. These well informed maps of the future allow us to test our current strategy, develop breakthrough innovations, and create transformative change. Strategic foresight and its most common tool, like scenario planning, have been successfully used at the corporate planning level of decades. Ultimately, the power of foresight lies not in the tools and the methods, but in its ability to alter perspectives. For this reason, strategic foresight is not just useful within strategic planning, but it also provides a new lens through which to reframe all of our outdated industrial age processes that are no longer effective in our new environment. Ultimately, the power of foresight lies not in its tools and methods, but in its ability to alter perspectives. For this reason, strategic foresight is not just useful within strategic planning, but it also provides a new lens through which to reframe all of our outdated industrial age processes that are no longer effective in our new environment. Strategic foresight is a discipline, but it's actually a philosophy. It works best as a philosophy running in the background and supporting all of our decision making and actions. In other words, strategic foresight should act more like an operating system than just another app that is added to the organization's process. Organizations that intentionally develop a futures culture are primed for market leading innovation, successful opportunity development, and revenue generating futures intelligence. There are four phases in the natural foresight approach, which is developed by our partner Catch, based in the USA, with the mission to democratize the future. Phases of natural foresight are discover, explore, map, and create. We can use these together or independently, depending on the situation, the business needs, and the goals. In the first phase, discover, we challenge our old ways of thinking. We all have a natural filter for information. It is what keeps us sane in a world that is constantly bombarding our senses with data. Unfortunately, in an environment of volatile change, this filtration system can lead us to unconsciously discount new opportunities if they do not line up with our established perspectives. Foresight helps us to overcome the tendency to interpret new information in terms of old beliefs and allows us to challenge our mental models. When we get past our biases, we are open to different ways of perceiving the world around us. And then we have the explore phase where we scan the external environment. Once we have addressed our ability to accept new information, we can begin to scan the external environment for trends and emerging issues that will shape our future strategy and development efforts. And then we start to map. In the map phase, we develop future scenarios and innovations. Strategic foresight can assist us in mapping the future so that we can be prepared regardless of what transpires. Scenarios provide these maps. Scenarios allow us to explore emerging and possible patterns that have yet to be recognized, even though our robust horizon scanning efforts. The fourth phase is create. In the create phase, we design and execute for value-added results. We address the disconnect between our outdated systems and the turbulent externalities causing them to fail at an unprecedented rate. This is where we recognize that band-aid approaches will not work. We need a roadmap for updating our organizational and personal operating systems for success in a new era. Ultimately, success with strategic foresight requires that we democratize the future, intentionally, actively, actively distributing the future faster and embedding it everywhere. And that's why I chose to share this secret here with you all today on this platform. Creating a culture of future thinkers means everyone must be empowered with the tools to understand and create the future for themselves and their communities, embracing not only lifelong learning, but unlearning and relearning as well. We need to use strategic foresight to stop planning for the future and start creating it. Many persons ask me, what is it that you are doing differently? And here is the answer. I'm sharing this with all of you here today, and I hope that all of you will embrace futures thinking and make strategic foresight your operating system. Thanks for having me, and connect with me to start your futures thinking journey too. I'll be rooting for you with all my heart. Bye.
Wow. Absolutely loved that talk from Anushka Anushka Sonai. She is someone who has not only inspired me as a fellow tech maker, but her journey and the things that she's accomplished in Suriname, and also initiatives that she started throughout the wider Caribbean. I do think that this bit of advice that she's giving us is something that we should listen to, we should look into. We're going to be distributing these talks afterwards. So if you missed any part of it and you want to dive back into it, you can 100% do so. Anushka. Anushka is in our YouTube chat. She says we need to use strategic foresight to stop planning for the future and start creating it. And she followed up by saying success with strategic foresight requires that we democratize the future intentionally and actively distributing the future faster and embedding it everywhere. So our next talk is going to be with Anya Ayangchi. She's not here yet, so I am considering, while we are waiting for her, to explore a few of our previous talks and things that have taken place. Myself, I really believe that we can accomplish a lot through these conversations that we're having today. Today, as we mentioned earlier, is our current trends and current creative trends and new markets. So we're exploring things like NFTs, we're exploring things like the metaverse, we're exploring content creation, distributing content, but also, as Anushka mentioned, democratizing the future by definitely creating it. So seeing our role as a creator. One of my favorite talks, I don't know if you're one of those people who YouTube their inspiration, but I think YouTube is one of the best creations ever in the tech space. I mean, we are using YouTube right now, and I definitely feel like using YouTube to find talks, to find affirmations, to find meditations. I'm a strong advocate of meditation. Hi, Wendy. So happy to see you. Like I definitely feel that there is a lot of content there for people who are like us in accepting our role as a creator. And Oprah Winfrey is one of my inspirations, and she has this amazing quote where she says she came to understand that she was co-creating her reality with the ultimate creator. And not getting all spiritual here, but I do think that's something that does fall in line with what Anushka is talking about, is that we do have this power to create the future. We just have to accept that role and lead with it. So we're very excited today to welcome the amazing Anya Ayangchi. Anya Ayangchi is a fashion designer, social entrepreneur, and strategist from Trinidad and Tobago. She is best known as the winner of Project Runway Season 9, having developed several businesses over the past decade geared towards the advancement of the Caribbean creative community. She now focuses her time on social innovation initiatives that aim to bridge the gap between Caribbean talent and global opportunities, which seems to be a running trend with all of our presenters and experts and innovators today, is bridging that gap between Caribbean talent and global opportunities. She has a particular passion for empowering Caribbean creators, small business owners, and at-risk women. And through her platform Wildflower, she is pioneering the NFT and digital fashion space. So, with no further ado, thank you for joining us, Anya Ayangchi. We feel so privileged to have you here sharing your story with us today. How are you today?
I'm great. Also incredibly honored to be here, and I'm so excited to have a little bit of a chat.
Yeah, so I'm gonna let you get right into it. A lot of people are very excited to hear your story, and I do want to commend every woman tech maker and innovator who has come forward, has been so completely open with their stories. And this is really not just an innovative space and a connecting space, it's a healing space. Because while we're in this tech space, we do experience a lot of obstacles. We experience a lot of, journeys that we can learn a lot from each other. So take the stage.
Thank you so much, Maria. Yes, actually, to that point, when I had bit of a chat with LaShawn ahead of time as to like how this conversation should go, she was so it was so unusual to have somebody say, no, Anya, just come and talk about your story. And I agree with you that it feels very healing to even start that way. It doesn't feel like so burdensome to have to think exactly how I'm going to share about this. So from the beginning, I could tell the nature of this conversation would be different. So today I'm here to talk about digital fashion and the purpose-driven metaverse. So before I start on that specifically, I think I just want to touch on the feeling of being described as being in tech, because obviously my professional career has really centered on being in fashion or just being in design in general. I studied graphic design and then I moved on into fashion, and I did start to go quite deeply into entrepreneurship after winning Project Runway. But tech is something that I think I've had to embrace through the lens of being tech enabled. A lot of my businesses from the very early stages were e-commerce driven, even before e-commerce was that much of a pervasive tool. But it still has taken me a little bit of time to accept that I could be described as being in tech. But I think now with Wildflower, I have definitely embraced that. And so a little bit about Wildflower is that Wildflower is my originally described as festival wear brand. In 2020, it was launched in New York prior to the pandemic starting. So of course, when the pandemic did start, I had to take a bit of a step back to understand like, how are we going to sell clothes for festivals that were not actually happening for the foreseeable future? And at the time, I had an intern who lived in LA and was already designing AR filters and dressing herself in skins in different virtual spaces. And I just became so fascinated with this opportunity that I saw already. And this is pre the sort of explosion of NFTs and the metaverse activities that we see now. But early in 2020, I started to sort of delve a little bit deeper into what this could look like for Wildflower as a brand. And fast forward now to 2022, we were recently the only Caribbean brand in the first ever Metaverse Fashion Week in Decentraland. And it's been an amazing journey over the last 12 months, learning about, understanding, and experimenting in the space of Web3. We have done that tremendously on the merits of collaborations with other Caribbean and primarily in our case Trinidadian blockchain developer collaborators and digital asset developers, and the technology expertise has come tremendously through collaboration. So in many ways, although I do now describe Wildflower as a phygital brand, physical and digital, and a technology enhanced fashion innovation company, I do think that I'm careful to over-rotate on using the technology just for the sake of it, because I think it really is just that Web3 has, it's almost like the technology has caught up with us to be able to manifest a lot of the vision of Wildflower that was, I was just rereading some of the original notes that I made about the intentions of the brand, and Web3 is simply just given a way, a platform, a mechanism to actualize this vision of community-based activities of a brand that is essentially about freedom. The tagline is where freedom blooms, and we talk about the brand itself, the clothing, whether digital or physical, has always been designed to enhance, radical self-expression through the clothes, the wearing of the clothes, radical creativity through the design of the clothes, but most of all, economic freedom, economic independence for the women who create the clothes. So this is where the metaverse, purpose-driven metaverse, is very much at the forefront of the work that I'm doing. I'm currently on a consortium, a global consortium called FigiCode, that was founded by Andrea Abrams, who has now become a partner to Wildflower. And my role on that consortium is to lead in the purpose-driven metaverse space. And that has really kind of bolstered a lot of what I have been doing ever since, particularly founding Together We, which is my foundation. And so using Wildflower now to increase the revenue streams that are funding my Women's Livelihood Initiative, which is an IDB Lab funded program called School, which we are just now, after 2 years of development, putting into execution. And that program is teaching women how to sew for both the fashion and carnival industries. And we have a heavy emphasis on the Venezuelan migrant population and at-risk women here in the Caribbean to skill them towards export level garment production. And so we're able to now bridge our metaverse activities of selling digital wearables through the brand Wildflower towards this Women's Livelihood Initiative that is here on the ground. And we are hoping now to sort of twin that program with collaborations that just today I had conversations about. I can't speak about too much yet, but basically twinning that Women's Livelihood Initiative and upskilling in the fashion and garment industry to the digital space. So training and providing markets and job opportunities for people to be able to create digital assets for the metaverse. So it's really kind of full circle. We're really developing an ecosystem, and Wildflower has gotten here through 14 months at this stage of really being vulnerable and experimental and trusting in the process of going from being a traditional fashion brand to being now, as I describe it, a phygital fashion innovation company. We went from doing NFTs to developing an onboarding program with our community, which we call the Wild Tribe, which is growing every day. And we're teaching and sort of co-creating the process of learning about this Web3 space with the community. And then, of course, as that has grown, we've now gone into the metaverse with, we had a shop space in Metaverse Fashion Week right next to DKNY, which was something that I felt really proved how Web3 and this new world can democratize opportunity, because there's just no way in another, in the real world that a small independent brand from the Caribbean like Wildflower could physically have a retail space next to DKNY. So that is just an example of how we are really living, breathing proof of what at least the utopian idealistic version of what people want to say Web3 is capable of doing. I think that we are proving it every day, every time we enter into a new realm of this world. And our next step is to really bring the community into the governance of Wildflower to some degree by creating a DAO. So that is what we're about to move into in the coming months. And we're also trying to make sure that there's a connection between in real life experiences and digital experiences. So we have quite a few things lined up for the next 12 months towards Carnival 2023, because although Wildflower is inspired by Trinidad Carnival and Burning Man, it's not really a Carnival brand per se, but I think Carnival presents an incredible opportunity for us to use these new technologies to help people understand like the real utility of this new world. And we as a Caribbean culture, we have an expertise in celebration, and that's really what Wildflower at its heart really is about: celebration and freedom and radical self-expression. So I know that was a huge mouthful, but I hope that gives some context to what we are doing. And I feel like one of the most important things to emphasize is how the community aspect of Wildflower has driven, continues to drive the direction, the momentum. I would say community and collaboration, like having the level of trust to sort of open up our process to new ways of doing things by virtue of alignments with other entities, particularly tech companies that have a completely different skill sets and a completely different expertise, but very, very similar, if not the same, purpose and value alignment. I've become much more confident in choosing collaborators, projects, strategic direction based on value alignment. And what has helped is that Wildflower was always very clear on its mission from the very beginning, before I had any idea about the metaverse, NFTs, or Web3. So at this stage, the technology is really there to enhance and facilitate what was originally intended with both Wildflower and School. But it does really just exponentially increase the potential to achieve what we've always wanted to achieve. So in that sense, I'm very excited to and proud to and embracing of this idea that Wildflower is a technology brand, in the sense, because it's not about just the technology, it's really about the fact that the tech plays a huge role in achieving the underlying principles and vision and mission of the brand. So, and now the brand has just exploded way beyond what it originally intended to be, because being a physical clothing brand was now looking back quite limiting, and it now plays a huge role that it's still a fashion brand, but that's not the be all and end all of its intent. And I'm really excited for the future. Every day I just love being able to work with the people that I work with to bring this work to life. And it's becoming a truly global conversation for us. On any given day, the conversations that we're having are with people that we just never would have had the opportunity to if we stayed in the traditional routes. And I hope that some of those conversations will start to manifest in what you see from the brand. And I really do want to invite anybody who's interested in digital fashion, interested in purpose-driven metaverse activities, to reach out to us. You can reach us obviously through our website and wildflower.com. And please join the Wild Tribe. We're still growing, we're still evolving. We are in the process of migrating to Discord, but we met people where they were at on WhatsApp, so we're still in WhatsApp. It's really trying to bridge all of these worlds and move forward together and acknowledge the shared principles, the shared values of the community, and how we can make that come to life in real ways, many ways.
Wow, I think just before we run out of time, I wanted to get a little bit of time for some questions.
Sure.
That entire presentation, not presentation, but talk was really, it was everything. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I can't believe you just it was perfect, but it was also, there were a few things that I wrote down that I really felt connected a lot to what both Lauren and Anushka were talking about earlier, which is accepting our creator role when it comes to the future. And
Right.
everything that you were just talking about is about that. When you talk about seeing your vision, your intention is so connected to not just having a profitable brand, but having a global success, having something that connects with people globally, inspires people on a fundamental level, which is what you are accomplishing. I mean, people were so excited when we heard that you were going to be talking about Wildflower. They were like, "That's all we want to hear about," because you are doing it, you are proving it. The question that I had, I don't know if anyone from the audience in the YouTube chat, if you have questions, please post it in the chat. My question was actually about the vulnerability that you talked about in advancing you from, not just a concept, because you already had your concept. It was worked out. It was manifested with intention, right? But being vulnerable with an idea in the Caribbean space, in even the global space, is not a common thing. I do feel that people are very protective of their ideas in the tech space. They tend to be like, I'm not going to tell anybody until it's like, and they don't even want to, not like what you were doing earlier, but definitely they don't collaborate enough because they're afraid to share their ideas. And so maybe could you speak a little bit more about how you identified the equal shared sense of purpose, your shared values? Because it's easy to say that, but for a lot of other tech makers, innovators, I don't think that's a very obvious thing, how to identify shared values successfully.
It's a really good question. Thank you for everything else you said. I I think where you started, which is that Wildflower as an entity had very clear intentions to begin with. So putting that out there through sharing, with people that I already you can kind of get a vibe. Does this person have, a similar mindset in life? And so putting that out there from the perspective of Wildflower has been on pre-Web3 was quite easy because it was in place. But the vulnerability around sharing ideas is a crucial aspect. And I got heavy buff from Kyle Maloney once about not wanting to share about the original direction of Wildflower. And Wildflower did end up going to Tech Beach. And that was the beginning of my sense that, oh, okay, maybe Wildflower does have a place in the tech world. And he was the one who was like, Anya, like in Silicon Valley, nobody's holding ideas close to their chest. Like that's the opposite of how it works. And it was kind of like a good nudge to realize that. And I can say this with pure confidence. There's no way Wildflower would be here today, 12 months later, functionally in the metaverse. And I can safely say the first Caribbean fashion brand in the metaverse, if it was not for being vulnerable, sharing openly, trusting, and knowing that we have collective consciousness, right? Like, even if I just keep it in my brain, it does not mean that somebody else has not already thought about it. So I have, I've started 10 small businesses already in my 15-year entrepreneurial life. So the idea that I can do everything is already out the window, and I'm happier now to just do what I actually care so much about and do it as best as I can, and also choose things that I do feel genuinely I have the capacity to do, for whatever reason. This brand, it feels very me. And so I do think that not holding things to my chest is entirely the reason that we've gotten this far. So there's one. And two, if somebody else is better positioned to do something that I have in my brain, then they're more than likely going to do it better anyway, So I might as well just share freely and let somebody else do what they're meant to do. And that's probably going to make the ecosystem much more powerful and serve me at some point, which I have seen happen, So
100%.
It's maturity, I guess.
Yeah, and I actually feel as a putting on my mental health hat, because I'm a mental health activist, I do feel that when we trust others, it heals the community as well. Like, because then even if there is a reason to not trust, obviously human people are not perfect. I think that it sets a much healthier tone for business or for innovation in particular. Innovation requires a safe space to break some eggs, right? Like you need to be fearless. You need to feel that the community is not going to diminish you if you fail. And I think that's one of the reasons why we are growing this community, which we're hoping that you will join us. Like, it really is a community for Caribbean healing, where it's a safe space for women to break some eggs in the tech space. So if they have conferences, Katie Francis, who'll be joining you later on your panel discussion, is going to be, she's just burgeoning with, summit and conference and community ideas. And I think, we really have to empower each other with fearlessness to explore. And I do think your story that you shared here today is going to do just that. It's going to make people feel I should just be fearless and not let those fears of I don't even think the word is competition, but definitely I think the fear of being diminished, a fear of criticism, of somehow being negatively impacted by opening yourself up, which is a human experience, like it's a very human thing. Something else that I wanted to mention that you brought up was the connection between real and virtual experiences. So I do know, like, I work with Anime Karib, and that was one of the challenges because Camille was like, we have to figure out how to do this both in reality and
Mm-hmm.
virtually at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And we hosted you last year for Anime Karib as well. That was so cool. And I do think that so I do think that it is a challenge. Have you come across a solution to that yet, or are you working on it?
We're definitely working on it. So funny, I saw Camille this morning and we talked about this as well. And essentially, my bet is on we hosted our first in real life event 3 weeks ago. It was so much fun. Like the community was just so ready to be after all of this talk and like IG lives and Zooms and NFTs, and like there's just nothing that can replace being in person together. So I really am betting on like building on that model towards we are already planning an event for Carnival 2023, and how can we create access to that event using NFTs, and also in that experience have digital. And I'm really working on this. It's so funny you asked me that question because I'm looking at having a collaboration with a sort of technology artist who's based in New York, who this is what she does, like there's it's immersive essentially, and this is really why Wildflower was inspired by Burning Man, because Burning Man is embracing of that. There's a lot of merging of arts and technology, in that very, very barren space in Nevada where it's held. And so I already have seen how, even if you can't necessarily specifically bridge as yet an in-person experience with the metaverse experience successfully. I mean, people have tried it. Just the other day, Absolute Land was happening during Coachella, and there was tons of comments about how badly it went. I mean, that it was fine, but it lacks this connectivity. So I think it has to be iterative. This is why I'm going to continue to do in real life events with Wildflower over this next 12 months so that we can keep practicing. That I have to tell you, that is the best thing about what has happened over the last year. And back to the point of vulnerability, and really very specific to your tagline this year, progress, not perfection, because I am, like most of us, and like any convent girl will tell you, petrified of anything other than perfect, but we minted our first Wildflower NFT on an IG live. We had no idea what we were doing, and we did it with the audience, and I mean, first of all, it sold out overnight. So that was a great outcome because people were engaged, and it really helps other people understand how to do it too. And I just think this idea of just jumping in, and that's the same thing we're going to do with the in real life meets digital experiences. We're just going to test and test and test until ideally by Carnival 2023, we will have some sort of solution, So I don't have the answer, but I can tell you that I'm very open to anybody who's interested in this stuff to just come on board and let's just experiment together. It's a total sandbox, like that's the best part about it.
Yeah, it sounds like a very exciting space, and I'm pretty sure you're going to get a few messages right after today. Now you mentioned Fijicode. Is it Fijicode?
Yep.
Earlier, and I do remember Anushka and I had caught some of your presentation at a talk you had shared with us in the entrepreneurs group.
Right.
What is that something that what has been your experience being part of that collaborative? And I know you mentioned a little bit of what they do, but some of what we're talking about here, I do think is strategy, right? And
Right.
there seems to be a lot of strategic organizations that are positioning themselves for the larger picture, right? So could you tell us a little bit about that organization and what their vision is?
Sure. Well, so Andrea, as I said, is the founder. She has a long career in traditional mass retail. And she's also now gone very deeply into the academic side of Web3 at Wharton University. And so she's bridging these two worlds of, recognizable high fashion brands as well as mass market fashion brands with a lot of she's an early investor in quite a few significant digital fashion companies. So she was an early investor into Dematerialized, Luxo, a range of and she got in at the time where she's now very friendly with a lot of the founders and so on. So her network is really significant in both the in real life fashion world and in the digital space. So she's brought together a consortium of people who touch on, in her opinion, both, in real life and traditional, and, pioneering and innovative, to be able to advise other companies how to get into this space. Because in her opinion, you need both. You can't just be, which is what happened with us, meaning Andrea and I, when we were having this shop space in Metaverse Fashion Week in Decentraland, a lot of the strategy was dominated by the technologists without understanding in real life fashion, supply chain, e-commerce, fulfillment. Like, all of that cannot be left out of the conversation,
Exactly.
So that is really, really crucial. And so I think her access for Wildflower as a brand is huge. We are already seeing, because of being a Metaverse Fashion Week, linkages into the in real world, in real life fashion retail that we would not have gotten before. And a lot of it has to do with her network and how we're sort of bridging, like you said at the beginning, bridging the Caribbean with these global opportunities.
Yeah, and 100% want to congratulate you here, in this space for your tremendous success this year with Wildflower. I mean, being next to DKNY, I mean, Donna Karen is one of my favorite brands ever. So that is just like, whew, that is amazing, and that positioning speaks to what we've already talked about today, which is democratizing access to this creation and this creative economy, which is the terminology that I learned today. So thank you so much, Anya. This was amazing.
Thank
We
you.
will be seeing you later at
Yes.
6:30.
Yes.
So have a great day. Until then, see you later.
You too. Bye.
Bye. Wow, what an amazing talk by Anya Youngji. It's kind of hard to imagine that she was worried about that at all. That was really it was everything, and I think I've said it a few times. One or two talks that we've had is the amount of vulnerability in this space has been 100% everything that Google Women Tech Makers is about, as well as the Women in Tech Caribbean. Like we all come here to not just share each other's experiences and understand the obstacles that we all share, but we definitely are trying to create a safe space for us to be our authentic selves. Yeah. Now, our next speaker is none other than the amazing Amanda Spann, who is the head of community. I love that job title, head of community at Tech Beat Retreat. Um, Amanda is an innovation. Amanda Spann is an innovation strategist, an app entrepreneur with a background in brand development, who has a professional focus on helping individuals and institutions, both domestically and abroad, design, launch, and grow new products, incubation programs, and entrepreneurship ecosystems. Her past work includes entrepreneurial ecosystem management at IBM and Wells Fargo, being a venture fellow at Rebel One, as well as being a co founder of the United States' first immigrant focus accelerator. Wow, that's awesome. Tip Hub Africa, that's what it's called. She splits her time between coaching aspiring entrepreneurs at the App Accelerator, a program to help non technical entrepreneurs build their first mobile app, and being the head of community for Tech Beach, the leading technology ecosystem for the Caribbean diaspora. Over her career, she has coached, consulted, and created content for over 30,000 entrepreneurs around the world. Wow. And has had the honor of being named one of Business Insider's 30 most important women in tech under 30. That is such an amazing bio. Thank you so much, Amanda, for being here with us today. Uh, yeah, that's wow. That is, how did you envision your journey taking you here, or was it like a series of universe oriented events that led to that amazing career?
No, I mean, I like to tell people I'm on my fourth life already. It's a series of small steps and decisions, and you have doors that open up in front of you, and you decide whether you want to walk through them or you want to go a different direction. And I mean, I just try to train my mind to see opportunity in everything. And I've always kind of had some goals, right? Some goals, some long-term goals, and directions that I wanted to see my life go. But I didn't necessarily know how I was going to get there. And I think one thing we just, as founders, as creators, as innovators, we just have to be very open and receptive to that path, from what we think it's going to look like in our mind, and know that there's just multiple ways of just getting to the end goal.
Yeah, definitely. So I know that you had we had fireside chat listed over what you wanted to do today. So have you decided are we going to, would you like me to just hand over to you, or would you like us to
No, I'm happy to answer questions. I'm happy to take questions from the audience. I don't have a particular chat that or a particular thing that I want to talk about. I'm happy to talk about anything the audience or you would like, or where you would like to take the conversation. I'm an open book.
Most definitely. Well, I mean, your bio literally creates like a map of questions.
Go for it.
So, I mean, I think one of the things that I think is very topical for the summit so far, and that's, I think, one of the reasons why we were so excited to have you, was the concept of a techpreneurial ecosystem and what that entails. So perhaps could you describe to us what are the main components of an entrepreneurial ecosystem from all of the work that you've done? Like, what is important for it to be successful, to actually help startups, to actually help innovators, get to the next step? So what are the components of this ecosystem? Because I was part of a consultation being held by the WHO earlier, and we were talking about health ecosystems, right? And I was telling, my question is, what does it look like? Because if we don't know what it looks like, then it's hard for people to visualize a pathway to that. Yeah. So could you give us a little bit of information about that?
Yeah. So I think first, it's a mix of looking at what else is out there in other digital ecosystems and connecting the Caribbean to that, but also defining what we want to be for ourselves, right? Because I think you could take a lot of inspiration, but there are things that are unique to this region that we should own, that we should celebrate, that we should look at as a blue ocean of opportunity. Right. As far as ecosystem development, I look at it as a series of key components in which no element should get left behind. Right. I can't, when I'm building an ecosystem, I can't just focus on startup entrepreneurs, because while they're creating the ideas and the products of the future, if they don't have the skills, the training, the resources, the talent that they need to fuel those ideas, then we're left back at square one, right?
Yeah.
And so what my role entails at Tech Beach, and what we ultimately are trying to do, and I'm sorry if you hear that background noise, I'm actually in Europe right now, and it's like 10, almost 10:30 at night.
Oh wow! Yeah. Thank you so much for being here.
Problem.
That's awesome.
No problem. So there's like cars and all this stuff going on, but yeah, I think a big part of it is just, and what my role involves at Tech Beach, is pulling all of those components together. I'm essentially the liaison and the person that builds bridges, whether that be in the form of products, programming, curriculum, that bridges entrepreneurs with investors, with the resources they need, with strategic partners, so that we can work in unison, because no element can get left behind. So I have to think about the startup entrepreneurs and what they're building. I have to think about small, medium-sized businesses, because not everyone is going to be a tech entrepreneur, but we have to ensure that our mom and pop shops and the small businesses that give so much life to our community are getting the resources that they need and keeping up with the digital economy, and are becoming tech enable, so that their businesses can be sustainable in the future. We have to think about, everyday people who are working in tech, also those who are, just everyday people who are going to school, who want to further their education, get them ready for the jobs of the future, because a lot of jobs will not be here in the coming century. And we want people to be prepared for that, and for people to not be intimidated by that, right? We have to upskill them and let them know that a lot of the skills that they already have are transferable. So building out programming to help them, make that smooth transition. I have to introduce investors to this ecosystem, people who want to sow seed into it, and let them know here are the blue oceans, here are the opportunities that align with your thesis or what you're interested in. And then strategic partners. So this could be corporations that already exist within the community or outside of it, who have offerings that could be symbiotic or could offer a lot of value to the community, and create a mutually beneficial partnership. So managing all of those relationships and finding ways that they can work together in a seamless way, and that everyone is elevated no matter what their end goal is through technology and innovation.
That was so instructive, and I think I do think you guys are bringing your A game with the nuggets of information and really concise statements. But as an innovator myself, I think that I have some questions around that as well. What are some of the key skills you think? I mean, I know some people might be interested in what are the best industries for us to get into, or whatever the case that might be, or what are the best fields of tech. For example, my innovative background is really in mental health tech for good solutions, which is kind of like a unique area for like seed investment and all that kind of stuff, because it's not like something simple or straightforward like that, although I know the goal is to get it there. So I think my question is, because I'm discovering that I need to develop some entrepreneurial skills, which I don't have. I don't know exactly what those skills are, but I know that I don't have them, which is some of it is money oriented. Some of it is maybe certain types of awareness that I need to develop. So what advice would you have for someone who has a great idea, is probably off the ground, or they're already starting to experiment with it, what are some of the skills that an entrepreneur in the tech space really needs to have? Not to be successful, but to have the to be able to design their path forward effectively. Because I think that's kind of something that I see as a recurring issue, especially with a lot of organizations that are going into sustainable, or sustainable businesses, or sustainable nonprofits. So all of these different ideas, sometimes we go, okay, we're going to start a business, but we don't always think about some of the things that we need to develop as a team in order for us to be successful. So do you have any advice around that? Is that like a big question?
It is a big question, but I think I have an answer for it. So I think the number one thing that I think entrepreneurs should be is coachable, and willing to receive feedback, and just, I'm a founder myself, so I understand that our ideas are our babies, right? Like, we are very committed to them, and oftentimes it's hard to take criticism for them. But the people who make themselves available to mentor you, or who to provide guidance, who create curriculum and programs like we do at Tech Beach, we don't do this work to hurt you or to try to humiliate you, right? Like, if we're going to offer insights, it's going to be coming from a sincere place, because we want you to be successful. When I work with my founders, I very seldomly tell people that they have bad ideas. That's not my job to tell you if you have a good or bad idea, because that's subjective. And that, there's an audience for almost everything. My job is to help you think through the hurdles that you might encounter that you don't see, and that you haven't thought through yet, right? So that you, as someone who trusts themselves and has confidence in themselves, and who was given this vision, can navigate that accordingly, right? And it's my job to expose you to people, places, and resources that might enable you to make the best decisions for your company moving forward. So I think the number one thing is just being coachable and being able to receive that information and know that it's coming from a place that, someone is earnestly trying to help you. Um, I think the second thing is, something you kind of touched on is just self-awareness, in the sense that, you need to be able to realize that you do need help, right? Because so many founders out here are like, yeah, I can do it. Yeah, you can, but you would probably be a lot better off by partnering with a team member, with a strategic partner. And, I think that involves taking inventory of your skills, like really assessing what you're good at, what you own, what you do really well, and then finding people who offer complementary skills, as opposed to a founder who's just like yourself. And that can be a challenge, finding someone who is as passionate about your project as you are. And sometimes it takes a little time to do. But it's possible, right? You just have to give yourself the time and the grace to do so. I would say the last thing is to really know your company, know your industry, know your market, study your competitors, what else is out in the market. And your competitor doesn't always necessarily have to be another, tech-enabled product, or sometimes it's just the way people are solving that problem currently. I always say that, like, before we had cars, its competitor was a horse, or, a train, or, so, we had to convince people why they should get in these metal death traps as opposed to riding a horse like they've been doing for hundreds of years. So, your competitor isn't always the same product as you. So, you would be surprised at how many founders I meet who, when they tell me about their product, I'm like, oh, you mean like X? And they're like, I've never heard of that. I've never heard of it, And so you just really got to do your due diligence so your product can actually make sure that you have a big enough market size to, really meet your goals, and to grow to the size that you want.
That was great. Thank you so much. And I do think I had a few more questions from what we were reading in your bio. So I just went to the website really quickly, the App Accelerator, which we have described here as a program to help non-technical entrepreneurs build their first mobile app. Can you tell us a little bit about this project? I love the landing site for it is awesome. But I think it would be great for us to. One of the things we're trying to do at the summit this year is talk about solutions that people are delivering to the entrepreneurial, especially the techpreneurial community. So let us know a little bit about this.
Yeah, so I started the App Accelerator about a year and a half, 2 years ago, because, since I started on my journey as an app entrepreneur, I get, dozens of emails every year from people who are like, I have an app idea, but I don't know where to start. And so, not everybody has the resources or the time to sit down and be able to, walk you step by step through an app. And so I built out this curriculum. To help people get started and provide a framework for them to better understand the steps necessary to take to build an app on both the business side and as well as the development side. So it's been a very interesting process. I'm actually in the I just recently wrote a book, so like the literary version of the program. So we're in the editing process for that, but now it'll be a lot more accessible for people worldwide to access this information, because there are a lot of great ideas out there, but they often are in the minds of people who, just don't have the technical skill to execute them. But there are ways to make these ideas come to life without, ever writing a line of code. And so I wanted to provide a framework and a pathway to that so that people could do those things, because, we need those ideas. They could really, change all of our lives. And I might not necessarily be the right person to execute that idea, but if I can help you get there faster, then, I'm happy to help you do that.
That's amazing. So I'm definitely looking forward to the book as well. I'm probably going to subscribe to the service or the website, because, as I mentioned, at the start of this innovation journey, I do think the first self awareness is that, as you said, is that you do need help, or that you do lack knowledge that requires you getting help. Yeah. And that's definitely been very instructive. Now, you mentioned in your bio as well, having a background in brand development, but you really have been doing a lot of community work in the United States. And as a past immigrant myself in the US, I'm very excited to hear about Tip Hub Africa. Is it still going on, or is it's a very exciting uh, solution, it sounds like. Could you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so I'm American, but my partners in Tip Up Africa are all Nigerian, but we partnered up nearly a decade ago to start this immigrant focused accelerator program and kind of think tank, for just problems, because we noticed that in the African American community, African American innovation community, and the African innovation community, there were a lot of synergies and a lot of the same problems, and that we felt like we could help solve each other's problems by kind of building a bridge of connectivity. And so what we conceptualized at the time was an accelerator program that we conducted in affiliation with the World Bank and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce to bring over entrepreneurs who were on the continent of Africa but working on global solutions, or working on solutions that were focused on the continent, or founders who were of African descent here in the States who were having an idea that, it could be focused on the States, on immigrant communities here, or it could be a global idea. So we worked with those entrepreneurs in an acceleration program. We also, through lots of programming and events, at one point, we conducted the largest pitch competition for founders, African-focused founders outside of the continent of Africa. I'm no longer part of the organization, but I still am very, very close to my co-founders. I'm going to one of their weddings in a couple weeks. So yeah, so they still work on the project, and they still take on, a smaller cohort of startups every year. They actually have expanded in doing a number of investments on the continent and outside of it. And they also have a training program that helps teach locals in Nigeria how to do, they teach them various forms of coding and technical skills. So I think they have a data science program, a mobile app development program. So they're doing a really wonderful job of getting people upskilled and getting them new jobs.
That's that's impressive, and I can imagine it's you helped and changed a lot of people's lives. From that program, so many times, I think having these accelerators, like even your description of Tech Beach Retreat, like these, which is an accelerator program as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Tech Beach, and I'm happy to go into Tech Beach because we're working on a ton of different things at Tech Beach, which we're really excited about. So Tech Beach, we have a number of different verticals. The one we're probably most known for is our accelerator program. Also, we do our annual conference. It's been virtual for the past few years because of the pandemic, but we will be bringing the conference back to Miami in late October. So you guys can look forward to that. Get your tickets for Miami. So just anticipate booking and coming stateside for a little while. But we have our Tech Beach retreat, which is essentially our homecoming for innovation in the Caribbean and getting everyone together. We are working on a number of different programs for small businesses to help them, stay afloat in the digital economy and navigate the COVID space. We are also working on upskilling program and training program, educational programs, job placement programs for people who have certain skill sets across the Caribbean who want to work in certain roles, as well as those who may not have the skills yet but want to get those skills. So we're creating programs like that. But yeah, an assortment of different programs that are really gonna, bridge the divide, really elevate the profile of tech and innovation in the Caribbean, really amplify the work that people are already doing. And I think, there's some competitiveness. You're going to see it with any ecosystem, in that people are like, well, I'm trying to do this and I'm trying to do that. I think Tech Beach ultimate goal is to be a catalyst and a platform for everyone who is doing work across the Caribbean to bridge that hard work and amplify it across the globe. We aren't here to necessarily compete with an organization or any other accelerator or any other ecosystem or platform. We're here to work with everyone, and just in opportunities like this where we can add value, or we can work with you to elevate your work and take it to the next level, and create, strategic partnerships for you to make your work, a lot smarter, a lot easier, not harder.
That's amazing, and definitely we'll be following up with you to share after the event any of these opportunities that are open right now. I know some things might be in planning. Are they all active right now? The upscaling?
No, they're not all active right now, but we will be announcing some things very, very
Yeah.
soon. So stay tuned. Feel free to go to our website,
We will.
techbeach.net, and sign up for our mailing list, and we can keep you in the loop about everything that's going on. We'll be sending out a newsletter very soon, so you'll be hearing a lot of updates and announcements for us going into the new year. And please feel free to bookmark our conferences. Will be in late October, last week in October. So just save the date for that.
Great. So we have one question from the audience, from Nicole Peter Patterson, who's from Caribbean Girls Hack. What would be success for you transforming the innovation ecosystem in the Caribbean with Tech Beach Retreat? So
that's a really good question.
That's a really good question.
Yeah. That's a great question. I think success would look like, I don't know how familiar you guys are with like all of the tech ecosystem in West Africa, but what I would like to position the Caribbean as is what, where in 5 years I would love to see the Caribbean be considered in the same running as the continent of Africa as far as innovation is concerned. I would like to see more innovation hubs. I would like to see more universities dedicate, and be intentional about creating programming curriculum that upskills people for the future. I would like to see investors coming to the Caribbean and considering it as a hot spot, as a bed for investment. I would like to see more IPOs out of the Caribbean and more unicorns. I would love to see more job opportunities created there. I mean, I think the ultimate goal is more job creations, and creating companies that will ultimately create more jobs and ultimately create a better quality of life for people in the Caribbean, because it's not just about, the allure of having a unicorn or having a tech startup, but it's the impact that startup ultimately has. Like, why the Amazons and the Facebooks are so impactful. It's not just because they reach all of these people, but because also, you have hundreds of thousands of people working for them who now have families, who are now in positions to go to college, to pursue their dreams, because they now have salaries and they now have access to information, insights that they didn't have before. So I think to just elevate the profile, and I think ultimately, if I want to hear the Caribbean at the top of people's tongues when they talk about investment, in the same way they talk about Silicon Valley, in the same way they talk about going to Austin or New York or London or Lagos or wherever. We should be talking about Jamaica or Trinidad in the same regard.
Yeah. Um, that was a really great answer. And I think that's a very exciting vision. You know, I do believe that if there's any way that any of us can contribute to that story, I think we all want to be part of that story for our future.
Well, you
So,
guys are already doing the work. You're already making it happen, and right? We're just at Tech Beach. We're just here to help, elevate that, and it's gonna take time, guys. We this is a labor of love, but it's also very intense, and sometimes feels like thankless work,
yeah.
right? Because you don't see the results immediately, right?
Right.
But in a couple of years when you have several unicorns and all of these companies, billion-dollar companies are popping up and they're employing tens of thousands of people, that's when we'll really see the impact of things. And entrepreneurship definitely changes economies, and
Yes.
it impacts communities, and it sows really big seeds. And so we're going to see the impact of these things in 2, 3, 4, 5 years. But we just have to do the work now. And just everyone being here on this call and being a part of this is a part of doing the work, and, sowing seed into each other, educating each other, and inspiring each other to keep going.
Yeah, I think you inspired us a lot today, Amanda, and I do hope that um, you will still be joining us later for our panel discussion at
Yeah,
six
I'm gonna be
thirty.
tired. I'll be there, but I'm tired. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm tired. I had to take a nap earlier.
Oh.
But I'm here.
No way. Thank we really deeply appreciate it, and our progress roundtables are really engineered towards a robust, half an hour discussion. So half an hour to 45 minutes. So it's not gonna be too heavy. But I also feel like your perspective is a really critical perspective for it to be a progress related discussion. So, thank you so much. See you later, and have a great evening. Until then, bye.
All right, talk to you soon.
Thank you so much, Amanda Spann. That was amazing. I'm so excited for the panel discussion later, which is going to be hosted by the amazing Mariel Barrow. You can also tune into this panel discussion through the Meeting Place app, which is accessible through the link that is on the screen right now. I will also post it inside of our YouTube chat. And our panelists include Camille Selvon, who's the founder of Anime Carib, Anya Youngchi, who was here earlier, founder and director of Wildflower, Amanda Spann, who was just with us, head of community at Tech Beach Retreat, Kimberly Demandney, who is the founder of Caribe Art, and Kadia Francis, who's the founder of Digital Jamaica. And it's going to be one hell of a discussion. And our progress roundtables, as I mentioned earlier, are really oriented to connect intention with action, not just talking about themes and topics, but really talking about solutions and actions that people can do right now to contribute to moving forward as a region in the Caribbean tech space. So our next speakers are Delise Francis and Carrie Ann Chandler. They come to us from Agenda Audio. I'm super excited about this presentation actually because you don't always hear about audio services or audio based companies in summits like this. I actually feel like this is the first time. That's not necessarily connected to like a major festival or something like that. So I love the concept of this business. I'm really looking forward to learning more from Delise and Carrie Ann. Delise is the lead coordinator, and Carrie Ann Chandler is the education coordinator. And today, their topic is Girls on the Beat with Agenda. So I'm going to add them to the stream. Welcome, welcome, Carrie Ann and Delise. Am I saying it correct? Is it Delise or Delise?
Yes, you have it perfectly, actually.
Delise.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. We had one mispronunciation of a name in the and I take pronunciation of names so seriously. I would actually delay the entire summit just to get it right. So how are you guys doing today? We're so excited to hear from you. And this is a woman-owned business, so definitely want to learn more about what it is you do. and how you transform the community with your work. So take the stage.
Alrighty.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Maria.
All right.
All right. So let's get.
We have a little presentation to share with you all.
Just give me 1 second here. Let me pull it up. Oh, wow. It's asking me for quite a bit here.
But you're muted, Maria.
I knew that. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Agenda Audio? I mean, I can read out what you guys sent to us, which is great. So, but I think it might actually be better if you tell us yourself. You know, what is this session about, and what is Agenda about before you dive into your presentation?
Okay, well, while Carrie is working, I can give you a little bit about Agenda. So Agenda was officially launched in June of 2020, right, early pandemic stages. However, it was like conceptualized since 2016, 2017, about there. And we were formed really to highlight, encourage, and create a female-centric space, a woman-centric space that focuses on education, empowerment, and awareness of women and girls in the audio and audiovisual industry in Trinidad and Tobago, and by extension, the Caribbean, because we felt that there was no representation of us. When we looked out, because of the pandemic stages, there were a lot of opportunities for training, as we know, online. So a lot of courses were opened up to the international audience. And I definitely took advantage of some of those, they were like priceless and key to my development. And then when I looked at home, there was nothing for us. So I got together with a few people that I knew from before. I actually knew Kerry from since high school, and as well as some other women I reached out to that I studied at UTT, the MTech program at UTT. I reached out to the few women that I knew that were part of that program, and I asked them if they were interested, and everyone was like, yes, let's do this. So that's how we started. And so, yeah, we're here to really introduce the idea to the wider Caribbean, essentially.
Okay, so thanks so much for that, and it's such a great story. I'm really looking forward to this presentation. So I'll let you guys take it away.
All right.
Thank you, Maria.
Good evening again, and thank you so much for having us. So we have several topics that we'd like to cover today. We're trying to cover them in a very short time frame, but I'll try to go as quickly but as in depth as possible with each topic. And feel free to ask any questions that you may have, and we'll try to address it. So to begin, again, my name is Delise Francis. I am the lead coordinator of Agenda Audio. With me is Carrie Ann Chandler. She is the education coordinator. And also part of our team is Shannon Young, and she is our official agenda blogger. So those are the three things that we have going for now. So as I said, we launched in the pandemic stages, but it was an idea that came about that we kind of thought about in the earlier stages. But because of, we're busy and we're doing other things, we never actually got to form together. So our mission really is to create a woman-centric space, and we want to focus on education, equity, diversity, especially for women and girls in the audio and AV industry, as well as in other technical fields related to audio and AV. So our vision is based on three pillars, which is education, empowerment, and awareness. And that drives us to be a go-to space that offers support and valuable resources, as well as opportunities for creative collaboration and empowerment. So we believe that equity is really necessary for this typically male-dominated industry. I mean, let's face it, it's a male-dominated industry. So together, we're working to make the AV industry a more inclusive, balanced, as well as diverse community for everyone. So we really want to claim our space. So today we're here to present to you. The session aims to give insight into the world of audio from the perspective of women striving to claim our space in this male-dominated industry that we exist in. And inevitably, we want to change the face of sound in Trinidad and Tobago and the wider Caribbean region. So through the creation of Agenda, we seek to inform and provide young girls and women with the opportunity to take up technical as well as creative roles in the field of audio and AV technology, while creating a safe space for them to grow their capabilities. And we want to emphasize on the safe space because we have all been in situations, I'm sure, where we felt not good enough, or we were overlooked, or we were perceived as not knowing enough as compared to our male counterparts. So in fact, if we take a look at the music industry, there are clear signs which demonstrate that perception, and the need, we have a need for us as women to claim our space, especially in the technical and creative and technological realms.
So I want to talk a little bit now about statistics of women in the music industry. And the music industry really and truly is just one part of the audio industry, because there's so many different parts of audio that we can contribute to. But looking at these statistics as represented by the USC Annenberg Inclusion Initiative in collaboration with Spotify, they really show the disparity within the music industry. Now, it's important to note that the statistics that I'm going to show here are really a reflection of the American music industry as opposed to our Caribbean industry. But I think the information really justifies and drives the points home about what we're trying to address. So a quick FYI. In a study across 500 pop songs within the last decade or so, male producers outnumbered female music producers 37-1. And that is a significant gap when we consider that. All right. So again, going back to the purpose of we needing to claim our space. And if we look at inclusion in the recording studio, this study, the Inclusion Initiative, it looked at 800 popular songs in the recording studio and how the creative and creative technical roles really played a part with the gender disparity. So one of the first things I want to present to you guys is this trend graph, and it's really showing from the years 2012 all the way up to 2019 how many male artists or how female artists were really climbing the charts as each year went by. And we can actually see just from the trend lines here that in the year 2013, 2016, and 2018, those were the only 3 years where women really stood out, right? And they really were significantly higher than their male counterparts or the male artists in that year. Then if we look at the percentage of women across the 3 creative roles in the music industry, we find that less than a quarter of them, 21.7% of them are artists. Less than that, 12% are songwriters. And an even smaller fraction of that, 2.6 of them, make up the producer's role, which would fall into the technical or technical creative aspects of it. So again, this really justifies the need for us to claim our space as women in the audio industry, in the music industry, because there's a lot of room for us to make a difference here. And it's not that we're not capable, but it's just that we're not being seen, we're not being heard as much in the music industry. Now, if we look at the producers who work in music, the female producers, in that same year span of 2012 to 2019, we could just look at the top line here and see that our male counterparts have really, really taken the lead from us, and they're in the upper 90% of that, right? In 2015 and 2017, those are really significant years because women producers, their work is only represented at 1.8%. 2019, we saw a bigger jump in here where it went up to 5%. But overall, in that time period, women really only made up 2.6% of the music producers in the music field. Now, that figure has improved greatly recently. In 2021, it went up to 28.1% of the Grammy nominees were actually female, showing that while there's still a need for us to make an even greater impact, the trend shows that women are actually gradually claiming their space in the industry. Yeah, but in that same period of time that we're talking about, 88.3% of Grammy nominees were male, as opposed to 11.7% of Grammy nominees were female. Again, we still have more work to do, right? So that jump didn't just happen overnight. It didn't just happen by some whim. There's actually a growing number of collectives and initiatives globally which aim to address that gender inequality and inclusivity in the music industry by providing representation for women and girls. So we have Diversify the Stage, Femit Forward, She's the Music, Women's Audio Mission, Sound Girls, We Are Moving the Needle, Amplify Her Voice, Audio Girl Africa, to name another one. And Agenda is hoping to be one of those representatives in the Caribbean community so that we can really help address those issues, so that we can really help get our women to be heard, to be seen, to have our young girls know that these are viable opportunities that they can look at. This is a viable career choice that they can have. And this is a difference that they can make regionally and globally. So let's put this in context. Why is all of this important? Is it just about representation and inclusivity? No. If we look around at what's happening right now, and even how we've been living and coping with the isolation of the pandemic, we can see just how necessary audio technology has been to all of us, not just women. Audio technology, music technology, sound for film, post-production, they've all been at the very core of our lives lately. Our communication, our entertainment, as well as our creative pursuits, they have been largely dependent on these things, especially at a time where congregating like we used to no longer feels safe for a lot of us. So from podcasts to social media posts on platforms like TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, to music platforms such as Apple Music, Spotify, or Tidal, and even streaming services like Netflix, audio technology is embedded in all of these things. And while it's in there, it hasn't just been used for all fun and games. I think we could agree that it's assisted us with access to remote opportunities as well. Platforms like Zoom, Google Meet, Skype, and even right here in this summit, StreamYard, audio technology and its uses have enabled video conferencing for networking and business pursuits, online remote learning, and it has also facilitated creative collaboration. What this means is now more than ever before, there's a greater need for not only an understanding of audio, but also for audio software coding, hardware development, AI development, and all of this can help us address the growing demands of our current world.
So why are we needed? Why is Agenda needed? Why are we here? We think that we can provide many things that are beneficial to women. For example, providing a support network, where we have women supporting women working in the professional audio industry and assisting those with the drive to be successful in audio. We are also an inclusive space, an inclusive and safe space for gender non-conforming and non-binary persons in the Caribbean. And that's something that people are afraid to talk about, especially in a Caribbean context. Audio and AV profession, these professions thrive on word of mouth. They thrive on references and networking. So we want to give women working in the industry and those who are interested in entering the industry an opportunity to meet and to network with other industry professionals, thereby creating a very strong network. There's also a significant lack of data in the audio and the AV industry in the Caribbean specifically. So Agenda intends to create our database of audio engineers, producers, lighting techs, sound designers, sound engineers, AV techs, and the list goes on. We want to create that database so that businesses and individuals can find suitable candidates to hire for your next event. Or maybe you want to embark on a studio project, a film or TV production, podcasts, and the list goes on. So we want to provide that sense of sisterhood, a sense of mentorship, and as well as opportunities for learning and training, especially for the younger generation. We need something by us, for us, which is Caribbean made and, full of Caribbean talent. All right, so we need to bridge that gap. How are we bridging the gap? So as previously stated, our vision is very clear. We stand on the 3 pillars of empowerment, awareness, and education. So we want to become a go-to space of offering valuable resources, as well as the opportunities to learn and be empowered in the industry, which is the audio and AV, because we recognize that AV is completely taken over this space. So we want to diversify the industry and change the face of sound. So through our website is agendaaudio.org, and it's AGENDR. It's a little play on that word. And so through our website and our social media presence, we're able to feature as well as converse with movers and shakers in the industry, both in Trinidad and Tobago, as well as the wider Caribbean region. We have our feature profile section, and in that section, we publish interviews with women in the industry on a monthly basis. Our video interviews are featured on YouTube, where we discuss important topics ranging from performance to tips to navigating the industry, as well as we touch on more intimate topics relating to women navigating a male-dominated space. Our blog posts are very similar, where we offer a mix of educational audio posts as well as informative reviews of artists and their music. And we also do like critical discussions on issues related to the industry. And if you look at in the picture, we have 2 of our latest blog posts, which is steel pan recording techniques, which is a lovely discussion done by Kerry about different recording techniques in the steel pan arena, as well as a post by our blogger, Shannon Young, focusing on menstruation in the industry. Those are real issues we face in the industry, being, for example, a stagehand or an audio engineer, and you have bad cramps. How are you navigating that? So on our IG platform, we focus on shorter tips, shorter posts, and we've recently begun to host live chats where we can really directly interface with our audience and engage with the audience, where they can ask questions and we can answer it one time. So we focus on various women operating within the audio and AV industry on IG and in all our platforms, really. So one of our major projects that we completed focused on developing and educating young girls in audio technology. And this is a project that we were really, really proud of. So in 2019, before we officially launched, Agenda, in collaboration with Sound Education Studio, hosted its first vacation camp, and it specifically targeted girls between the ages of 12 to 17 years of age. Content of this camp included an introduction to signal flow, signal processing, the mixing board. They learned about cables used in audio. They learned about how to care for equipment and maintain it, microphones and recording techniques, beat making, and they learned to navigate 2 programs specifically, which is Logic Pro and Ableton. And so they learned how to build beats. They also learned about the basics of DJing and how to connect a small sound system. And they were so proud of themselves. And the camp culminated in the production of a song of their choice. They chose to reproduce a cover of Señorita by Camila Cabello and Shawn Mendes. And during the camp, we felt it was important for them to see themselves being represented. Therefore, the students were exposed to guest lecturers by women. Carrie was one of those women. So they were exposed to women audio engineers, theater, stage techs, as well as accomplished musicians in their field.
Another one of the projects that we took on during the pandemic was actually done for Broadway Cares. They featured a Black Lives Matter live streamed concert. And our work was presented alongside a choreographed dance by Lyric Dene, who you guys are seeing as the centermost picture on this slide here. Now, this was a really important project to us because it allowed us to engage in remote creative collaboration via the production of an original song entirely done by an all-women team. And this team was made up of the Agenda members. Some of them you are actually seeing playing the guitar and playing the bass in the upper left slide. And it also featured Tania Brandon, who you're seeing in the upper right slide. Tania is a featured performer and singer with The Lion King and has also performed as the first Black Elsa in Disney's Frozen on Broadway. So, recording of this project was done in Trinidad and Tobago, New York, and North Carolina, all at the same time. We were split up in different areas at that point in time, but that did not stop us from being able to collaborate creatively using technology to our advantage. The mixing of the project was done in New York by myself, and the final finished project was actually presented globally via live streaming. Again, I think this really speaks to how technology allows us to interact and collaborate and not really be limited by the borders that we probably would have had before the pandemic or even before that.
So, in conclusion, we have several projects that we are developing. It's in the development stages, and we are aiming for it to be launched within the next year. These include another installment of Girls on the Beat. We want to develop a Caribbean AV database of professionals, which I spoke about earlier. We want to host an in-person workshops as we exit the pandemic stages. So we're still looking at how things go with the pandemic, but we would like to do some in-person workshops. And we want to embark on different creative collaborations. We really want to emphasize on the creative collaborations because we feel like collaborations aren't being explored enough, especially collaborations among other women within the Caribbean region. We would also like to explore bigger projects, such as developing a Caribbean soundscape, which focuses on capturing the sounds of the Caribbean, and also dive deeper into exploring the art of recording the steel pan. So we have a lot of projects in the planning stages and coming up. So we want you all to look out for those. They will be very exciting. We are pretty excited about it as well. So of course, if you like what you've heard this evening and you want to reach out to us, you can visit us at any of our social media platforms. I see that Maria has posted them in the chat. Our website again is agendaaudio.org, and our handle on all social media is Agenda Audio, but make sure to, don't spell it the correct way. Spell it the incorrect way and you'll get us. All right. So thank you so much for your time and attention, and thank you to the organizers of the summit for having us. It was truly a pleasure.
Oh, guys, that was a completely amazing story. Hello. Okay, sorry, my dog. um, yeah, I definitely think that it's a very inspiring story. I especially love the collaboration and producing a project across the ocean, literally. That's amazing. So can people, when they visit your website, they can see all of this work, your blog stories, all of these different things. I myself will definitely be reaching out to follow up on this story. Like, this is a very important story to tell because you did it, right? It's not like it's not something that you're thinking about doing. You did it. You just executed what was your intention. And there's a lot of that that's coming out of our talks today is people who had pure intention manifested their ideas, and you guys are definitely doing it. And we are 100% behind you as women tech makers. So thank you so much for joining us today.
All right, thank
Thank
you
you
for
for
having
having us, Maria.
Bye. Okay, so that was amazing. It really was fantastic. And I would like to say new. It was new for me, and I've been to quite a few tech conferences and tech summits. But you don't really hear a lot about the audio industry. You hear a lot about the performance industry, the events industry, but not specifically from this perspective of services, of activity and innovation. So thank you so much for being here. Our next talk is going to be from Kyra Barker, who I'm very excited to meet. It's mostly because venture capitalism, I think, is very mysterious to quite a lot of us. We really do feel that venture capitalism. We know that it's something that can help us, but we don't always understand how it works, or how it could help us in real ways that we can visualize. So I'm very excited to talk about that. So before we dive into that, we are going to give you a brief introduction um into Kyra, you know. So Kyra is a multidisciplinary marketer with sorry, excuse me, 1 second. She is a multidisciplinary marketer with 12 years of experience spanning strategy, development, campaign management, creative direction, and media planning. She comes with a mix of agency leadership and brand management experience built around a specialization in consumer brands, specifically within the CPG, automotive, and retail industries. And you can find out more about her on her website, kyra-barker.com. So thank you for being with us today, Miss Barker. We are excited to have this conversation. I was telling LaShawn that it's so important to have strategy from the financial side of things when it comes to innovation and when we're thinking about the future of the tech space or diversity and inclusion in the tech space. You know, the financial aspect of how to make those things happen and how to make stories and visions materialize is one of the reasons why we're here. So I'm gonna let you take the stage. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Good evening, everyone. I am Kyra Barker from Trinidad and Tobago, and I operate at the intersection of marketing and venture capital. So, I am the CEO of Cater, a brand and business development firm that specializes in helping venture backed startups build, validate, and grow their businesses. So, having spent just over the past 12 to 15 years within the marketing industry, I'm now answering the call for greater diversity in VC, in venture capital. So, I'm currently operating as a venture partner with the equity crowdfunding platform Republic.com. And I am also a scout for Ada Ventures, which is a UK based firm. And I'm involved in a couple other initiatives that I can't speak about publicly right yet. But if you continue to follow me on social media, you'll get those announcements pretty soon, because everything that I do, I try as much as possible to be able to really provide resources to Caribbean based startups, as well as to be able to really tap into the Caribbean diaspora and get them involved in the investing side of things as well, because we do need more of us on the other side of the table. So that brings me to our talk today, which is going to be about venture capital. So, firstly, what exactly is venture capital? Now, it is a type of private equity financing that's available to high growth startups. And it's really a long term investment where venture capitalists invest a specific amount of capital into your company, and they expect to get a percentage equity in return. Now, venture capital is very different from, let's say, for example, taking a business loan, because with a loan, you have a specific principal, you have a certain amount of interest that you need to repay within a specific amount of time. But when a venture capitalist makes an investment into your company, they're actually making that investment for the lifetime of your company. And they don't actually get a return on that investment until you get to a liquidity event. Now, a liquidity event can be typically one of three things. One, through a merger where two companies come together and form a new entity, through an acquisition where a larger company acquires your smaller company, or through what is the gold standard, an IPO, which is an initial public offering. At that point in time, you are taking your private company public and having it trade on a stock exchange. Most recently, we had Gordon Swaby out of Jamaica actually getting his company onto the Jamaican Stock Exchange through an IPO just last month. So I believe he was the first Caribbean tech company to IPO. So congratulations to him. And he's definitely paving the way for other technology startups in the Caribbean to do the same, either through the Jamaican Stock Exchange or, of course, through the US. Now, in terms of the difference between a high growth startup and a small business, for example, definitely a high growth startup needs to have the ability to build and scale very quickly and to be able to be a globally recognizable company. Now, in terms of a startup, typically you have that operating within, your family structure. It's providing a livelihood for you and your family members. You live off of the profits every month. It's something that is meant as a legacy company. Of course, it could grow to $1 million, multi-million dollar company with time, but it's something that you really think that you're going to keep within your family, and it's going to remain private for the duration of that company. Whereas a high growth startup, it's definitely something that you want to be able to exit at some point in time, to be able to have that liquidity event. And by exit, it means selling through one of the liquidity events that I mentioned earlier. And typically a high growth startup really operates within the technology space because of the fact that it's so easy for a technology company to scale across borders once, regulatory compliance is in order. Now, venture capitalists typically seek high growth startups because they need to get that return on their investment, that 100x return. You would hear that venture capitalists are called unicorn hunters because they're searching for these companies that will get to that $1 billion valuation status so that they can get their 100x return on their investments. And it sounds great in terms of the headlines, and it sounds amazing. But as a startup founder, it could sound very daunting to be able to, commit to growing your company to that level. But the reason why it's really important is because of the fact that, as I mentioned before, when a venture capitalist invests in your company, they're doing this for the long term. They're doing this for the life of your company. So typically, a venture capital fund has a life of 10 years, 8 to 10 years. Now, what that means is that the money that they invest in your company, they have 10 years for that company to get to a liquidity event so that they can return that money to their investors. So just taking things on the investor side of things so that you can understand a little bit of how venture capital firms work. Much like startups, venture capital fund managers have to raise money for their firms. And that's how they are able to get the fund to be able to invest into your company. So when an LP, which is a limited partner, invests in a venture capital firm, they're doing so with the understanding that they're not going to see their money for at least 8 to 10 years. And then 2, they're doing so with the understanding that they need to get outsized returns. Now, let's say, for example, you have money to invest in, stocks or real estate, etc. Typically, you would see a return on your investment in a much shorter time frame. But understand that as a limited partner in a venture capital fund, you're investing your dollars and you're not seeing it for 10 years. So obviously the expectation is that you're going to make an outsized return on your investment. Now, the reason why they also look at really, really large numbers of returns is because of the fact that a lot of startups fail. 90% of startups fail. Now, if you're running a venture capital firm, it's an extremely risky business, because the majority of your portfolio of companies that you invest in are going to go to zilch. That's just the harsh reality. And it's just a matter then of being able to really select and choose that one company that's going to be your saving grace to be able to return the majority of your fund. Now, what does this look like in terms of numbers? So let's say, for example, I invest $100,000 into your company. And at that point in time, you've decided that your company is worth $10 million. So if I invest $100,000 into your company, at that point in time, it's just worth 1% of your company. Now, for me to be able to get 100 times my return, you then have to do 100 times in terms of the valuation of your company. So your company, which is valued at 10 million, would then need to be valued at $1 billion for me to then be able to make $10 million off of that investment. Now, you're probably asking, why would I need to make $10 million off of one company only? It goes back to what I was saying before, where the majority of startups fail. So a lot of venture capital firms, they actually depend on that one company that's going to be their unicorn, that's going to be able to make back the entirety of their fund so that their LPs are happy at the end of the day. Now, the other thing to think about in terms of valuation, again, we get caught up in the headlines a lot and we say, okay, a company is raising in Silicon Valley off of an idea on a piece of paper, and that company is worth $10 million. So surely my company should be worth $10 million as well at a pre-seed stage. That's not the reality. You really need to be realistic about how you're valuing your company, not just from the perspective of being able to attract investors, but also from the perspective of being clear on what your obligation is going to be to those investors at that point in time. When you come in at a very high valuation early on, it's going to be much more difficult to raise money in later rounds because, again, the LPs and the VCs, the limited partners and venture capitalists, they are going to they're really going to be expecting a markup on their investment with each round of capital that is raised. So in venture capital, we have the different rounds which is the different points in time that you go to VCs to get more capital. So let's just go through some. For example, at the pre-seed stage, a seed stage, a Series A, etc. So let's say, for example, we raise money at a pre-seed stage and your valuation is $5 million. When you go to raise at a seed stage, the expectation from the venture capitalist is that you're going to be raising at a higher valuation. So if you start off in the beginning with an exorbitant valuation of $10 million or $20 million, when you get to that next stage, you're going to need to value your company at 2 times that, 3 times that, and then it goes and goes and goes with time. So you put yourself in a very difficult position of being able to hit those milestones when you set an exorbitant valuation early on. The other thing to consider as well when you're looking at venture capital investment is the fit and alignment with your venture capital firm. It's incredibly important that you align your goals and your milestones with the venture capitalist that you're allowing onto your cap table. Because once they make an investment into your company, depending on the size of investment, they are then offered a board seat. And that means they are now decision makers in your company. So it is incredibly important that you have the right people on your team to be a part of your board, because you do not want a situation where the venture capitalists are ready for an exit, they're ready for that liquidity event, and you aren't ready as the founder. And guess what? They do a hostile takeover and they boot you out as the CEO of the company and put in their own CEO, because that has happened multiple times. It's the ugly side of VC. But again, it's because these venture capital fund managers, they have a responsibility to their LPs to return that money within 8 to 10 years. So whether or not you decide that you want to hold on to your company because it's going great, at a specific point in time, you're going to reach a threshold where they're required that you have to be able to get to a liquidity event and get so very quickly. The other thing that I wanted to touch on in terms of valuation, again, it's very important to value your company at a fair valuation, because you do not want to raise a ton of capital and then you flop. Most recently, there was an example with a company called Fast.com, which promised everyone one-click checkouts, and they only made $600,000 in revenue after raising over $100 million in venture capital funding. You don't want that to be you. It's going to hurt your reputation. It's going to hurt your ability to be able to raise capital in the future and build another company. So it's very important, 1, that you value your company at a decent valuation, but 2, that when you're thinking about investing and thinking about venture capital specifically, that you are prepared for the journey ahead, because it is very exciting to be able to say that you raised millions of dollars from venture capital funds, but then you have to be able to deliver on those funds that you've raised, deliver on the milestones that you promised, and be able to get a decent return, outsized returns for the venture capitalists that are investing into your company. So if you've decided that this is right for you, then, here are some things that you should think about at each stage of your investment journey. If you're at a pre-seed stage, you just have an idea. Venture capitalists are really looking for the team. They're looking to ensure that your team is very competent, that you've really researched the problem that you're trying to solve, and that the solution that you're developing is one that is going to be a good fit for the market. Now, at the pre-seed stage, they don't expect you to really have a lot of customers and revenue flowing in, because you typically don't have a product yet. But it's really important that you're able to show that you are building some sort of community, you're building a wait list, and you have users and beta testers that are ready to use your product when it's launched. At the seed stage, it's really important to show traction. Now, traction in the form of customers, because by the time you're at seed stage, you should have a product in the market that you're able to charge people for and be able to show that you have customers. Now, a good milestone for seed stage investors is 1,000 paying customers. They get excited when you're able to tell them that you have 1,000 paying customers. So once you get to that point, it's a good marker to be able to say, okay, I'm ready for a seed stage investment. And then at the Series A, it's all about growth. You've built your team, you've built your product, you've iterated on your product, and you're ready to scale beyond the initial market that you set out for your product or to go after. So at the Series A stage, when you're raising those funds, it's really to blow up your company and grow very, very rapidly. So I hope all of this was incredibly helpful to you. If you have any additional questions, feel free to follow me on Twitter and reach out to me there. My handle is at the Kyra Barker. And you can also leave me a voice message at yak.com/Kyra. That's yak, YAC.com/Kyra. Thank you so much, Maria, and the rest of the team for having me here. I thoroughly enjoyed this session, and I do hope that it was helpful.
Thank you so much. And it really was a great introduction to venture capitalism, the scary parts as well. I think you definitely had some wake up call moments in that talk, And so thank you so much for sharing this information with us. And we look forward to including you again with more conversations around venture capitalism and tech in the future. So thank you so much.
Yes, always. Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye. Okay, so moving into our next session, which is a highly anticipated progress roundtable with the amazing Mariel Barrow, who is one of our partners with the International Women's Day Caribbean Tech Summit. Mariel is the founder of Caribbean in Transit, and we're connecting action with intention with action for all of these progress roundtables. And one of the things we want to promote is the Meeting Place app, which was built by Mariel herself, I might add. She is definitely leading with a creative community hub innovation that is continuing to grow. I think it grew between the last time I checked and today. So please feel free to check out this app. You can check it out using the link bit.ly/summitmeet. And we look forward to continuing to support the Meeting Place moving forward. How are you doing today, Mariel?
Maria, I am awesome. What an incredible summit you and your team have put together. This has been really an amazing lineup of speakers, so much information, so many new things to learn. So thank you for all of your investment and your hard work.
Definitely. So I actually see that we have an additional member to our panel discussion today, which is Leanne Fingal, who's coming to us from Draper Startup House, which is really exciting because they are amazing. So you have one packed panel of experts. So I'm going to leave you to it to start introducing your panel. And please have a great panel. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Maria. Well, we have such a lineup today, and so I'm really, really excited for all of us to get talking, because each and every one of these women really has a long history of work in the sector, and just such a wide range of experience between all the panelists. So great to see you, Anya. We have a few new faces to me, so Kadia, Leanne, I know Camille for a long time now, Kimberly, and Amanda. I heard some of you speak this evening and this afternoon, and it was really something to hear. So I don't want to take the role of introducing you, because I think that a lot of you have been introduced, but I also think that we are our best advocates, and there's so many things that you can tell us about yourselves that we can't capture in a bio. So I'm going to offer you all the opportunity to say just a few words about yourself. Maybe what are your key values that you want to bring to this roundtable this evening, this afternoon, in terms of considering how we can move forward together, and without losing the authenticity and the belief systems that are embedded for us. So perhaps we can have Kimberly start. She's just the first person on my screen. So that's how I'm calling you, Kimberly.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Kimberly. I have come from Guadeloupe. It's a French-speaking island in the Caribbean. I'm the founder of Caribbean Arts. This is one of the leading media apps about Caribbean arts. And about my value, I will say Caribbean cooperation. I think it's important for me to connect all the Caribbean islands and to break the language barrier. So Caribbean Art is a way for me to display, show Caribbean artists and break this barrier thanks to the digital.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. And of course, we all know Carib Art. And also thank you for bringing to the fore that today is actually World Creativity and Innovation Day, as heralded by the UN. So what an occasion to mark that, this day. So great. Camille, I know that you are a feature speaker, and we were so excited by your presentation. So just give us one nugget.
Sure. Well, first of all, I don't need to introduce myself, right?
No,
you can no. Okay.
We all know you.
All right. Okay. Good. Well, the main thing is that I feel like we need to be honest about being female in the workspace in technology and art. And I think the experience that I've had for the 20 years in this industry will sort of give me the authority to do that. So I'm so happy to be here to share that experience with everyone and see how we can continue to make what we're doing here, all the different aspects of art and technology, to make it accessible to everyone. So I'm really excited. And hi, Anya. I know I just saw you a few minutes ago. Nice to be here.
Okay, wonderful. And just in case people, may not have caught her feature presentation, Camille is the founder of Anime Carib, which is a 20-year plus running festival in animation in the Caribbean, amongst many other things, amongst many other hats. Okay, wonderful. Kadia?
Sorry. Hey, hi, everyone. My name is Kadia Francis. I'm from Jamaica. I am the founder of Digital Jamaica. We are really a community-based platform focusing more on digital culture, promoting Jamaicans in digital and tech spaces. And it's just a meeting point where persons can come for more information and for us to have conversation around what tech means to us as Jamaicans in the creative space and how we can leverage or optimize the access that we have to technology to earn. My big thing is how we can make more money. Using technology and leveraging that to market ourselves, become more visible in the space on a global level so we can make more money. That's always my end point.
Okay, thank you. And I think it's really important because what we're trying to capture here is those kind of thematic points that we want to start building around to think about how do we go forward together, because we're all operating, businesses or projects in our own spaces, and we can be that much more powerful together. So I can't see everybody's name at the bottom. Oh, there we go. Leanne, here we go.
Hi, everyone. So I think I'm the only one who didn't present at the conference. My name is Leanne Fingal from Trinidad, and I am involved in a fintech startup in Trinidad called Luhu, and I'm also the co-founder of JPA Startup House CARICOM, which is an ecosystem building and ventures business and co-working space business. I think where I find my value system is somewhere where creativity and innovation intersect. So obviously I'm not coming from a creative background, it's fintech and ventures, but there's that gap where, the big idea, where it meets innovation. I think that's where I find myself most useful.
Very interesting. And so Leanne, tell us, is this co-working space also a digital co-working space? Because that's one of the things I've found myself having to tap into in this remote environment, and I found it very, very productive, but there isn't a formal space for that.
Right. Yeah, it's one of the things we're definitely going to focus on. I think in the first instance, because we're just all coming off of this COVID sort of, everyone's sick and tired of Zoom, they're sick and tired of this. So in the first instance, we're really trying to bring community in person,
yes.
To try and build the ecosystem in person. But obviously we want, it's a Caribbean enterprise. So we do need to connect digitally. And we also were really interested in having the diaspora be a part of the project because it's important that we, connect. So yeah, definitely.
Okay, thank you. And Amanda, I heard you speak. Oh my goodness. I was just so blown away. I was like, okay, where do we start with Amanda? So Amanda, go ahead, please.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here, and thank you for the kind words. I'm Amanda Spann. I'm an app entrepreneur. I'm also the head of community at Tech Beach. We are a digital ecosystem that is focused on amplifying innovation and technology ventures in the Caribbean. We have a number of programs that we are either actively working on or have already launched. We have our Accelerator program. We have a large tech retreat that will be happening in October for the first time again in person in a few years. We also have a number of workforce development programs and digital upskilling programs focused on small businesses and medium-sized businesses. And our ultimate goal is to just amplify the work that everyone is already doing in the Caribbean and to build a bridge of connectivity across those platforms so that the great works that you ladies are doing individually, we can all work together to amplify that and put the Caribbean on the map as far as being a digital and innovation hub.
Wonderful. So I think that one of the things that I've recognized, we have these kind of trigger points. So in a sense, these roundtables, these discussions, these summits work to, connect persons, but then there's a gap, right? Because life then happens again. We get back into our daily routines and then so many things slip. So I think the question for me has always been, how do we make these interactions more continuous or at least contiguous so that they happen let's say every 2 months, where we come together and we see, okay, we are doing this or we're trying to move this needle forward in this way together. And we're going to check in every 2 months to ensure that it is moving in the direction that we want it to. So first it's to figure out what do we want to come, to center around to move forward. How do we move that needle forward together, not only in our individual spheres, but as a kind of larger women in tech community who are all working in creative spheres. For me, that can happen either around a thematic point. It can happen around offerings that each of us, have to put on the table, or it can also happen around needs. So I just want us to think a little bit about, kind of what is the first area that you would want to think about collaborating, or you feel is the most urgent need that we would like to move forward. And that's thrown out to anyone. I see Anya smiling, so maybe I should call Anya. Anya, did I ask you to introduce yourself? Maybe because I know Anya.
No, but it's totally fine. Like, I was so excited listening to everybody introduce themselves. And I don't know what I'm supposed to say after all these incredible women just introduce themselves and their values. So but I'll briefly say that I am best known as a fashion designer, but I have definitely evolved over the years since Project Runway to being more of a social entrepreneur and entering very wholeheartedly into the Web3 space with my brand Wildflower, which is now much more of a phygital brand fashion innovation company. And I'm very blessed to be working with other wonderful women on this panel, Camille, and by extension, Amanda, because of TBR Lab, because my other entities, Nudge Caribbean, Spool, Island, which is an NFT ecosystem business, all have amazing partnerships with some of these incredible ladies. But in terms of what I think is maybe like really at the forefront of what's needed from a collaborative standpoint, and what stands out to me with Nudge Caribbean, with Wildflower, with Spool, all of these, the undercurrent is education, and education from the standpoint of really having the intent to be inclusive, non-intimidating. The world that I'm in with Web3 and Wildflower like really requires a tremendous amount of hand-holding and welcoming, especially for women, because crypto in particular feels very male-dominated and, for want of a more technical term, very bro-y. There's a need for entering and onboarding into these spaces to be deliberately female-focused, deliberately embracing of the communities that are otherwise underrepresented, unwelcomed, or feel whatever level of imposter syndrome for whatever reasons that I don't think should belong to us, in my opinion. So I just think education is key, and I think collaboration around that from a very Caribbean voice also. As Camille mentioned, we met just this morning, and so much of what we, I think, align on from a value perspective has to do with being Caribbean-centric, celebrating our stories, and welcoming as much of our creative community into these technology spaces in ways that work for them. You know, we shouldn't have to do all the work to earn access. That access is what this technology is designed for. So I think it's for us to have the courage to embrace that and to bridge all the global and Caribbean connections to make sure that those access points are truly accessible.
Wow, I feel as though you just said it all there, Anne. Like you just summed up the entire project of this roundtable by that. But I would love to hear the others, other points of views as well, and see how we all feel about coming around, the central point of education. I know a lot of you are doing incubators as well. I heard Amanda speak about that. Camille, of course, I know that you're doing, the same in that regard. So,
well, I could jump in. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, you can go ahead, Camille.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, just you talked about education, and Anya touched on it there. And that certainly is I think that is the meeting point, personally. Because, we would have brothers, we would have sisters, we'd have children that would all have to pass through that education system. And if we are to have a successful future, we need to impact education. And you do not have to be an educator to impact education, because I can tell you, education doesn't need 4 walls. I am here with walls, and I've been teaching without walls. I've taken students to me on small planes going over Guyana and Suriname and looking down into the forest, and that's a classroom. So we do not have to be educators to educate those coming behind us and those that are there with us. And I think that is really, really critical, because especially coming from the Caribbean, and I spoke about this in my piece, especially coming in from the Caribbean, where we are so intertwined with a colonial past that affects our future. It's a colonial past that affects our future, and we have to be the ones to break it. And being in positions like mine, I am the head of the animation department at the University of Trinidad and Tobago. My purpose is to teach, yes, but it's also to break those patterns. And I do feel that every single one of us on this panel and everyone in the audience, there's a way for us to connect. So although I'm in education, I'm in digital media. Although I'm in digital media, I'm almost understanding everything that Anya is saying there about NFTs and those new sort of technologies. And in a way, that multimedia thing is the future. And therefore, we have to find ways to connect those dots, to build that network that you are talking about there, that was part of your question, Marielle, about how do we build that network among ourselves.
I think that question of, the post-colonial context is really, really critical here as well, right? But that question also hinges on the notion of visibility, right? Because one of the things that the colonial mentality, permeates in that mentality is about kind of making us invisible in a certain way. So I also want to bridge that gap and talk about visibility and, visibly absent. There's so many terminologies surrounding that, but oftentimes we're either from a post-colonial theoretical context hailed as the female other who's being kind of, consumed in one way by this other Western world, or we're this invisible other who's, the child, or, so there are all these dynamics that, the education is a big part of it, but visibility is also kind of threaded into that in very important ways. So I know that Kadia touched on this idea of visibility. Kadia, can you go into that some more, or if there's anyone else who would like to speak some more on that?
Yeah, sure. I'm actually really glad that you guys when the conversation is taking kind of this turn, because one thing I have always talked to especially entrepreneurs in the creative space about is how do you maintain culture? How do you maintain identity? How do you secure that in this space, right? Because the more digital we become, the more we put our content out there, the more we put our culture out there. And before I even go there, for a very long time, it talking about the post-colonial context, for a very long time, we find that in Jamaica and in the Caribbean, we were being talked about, not necessarily being talked to. So narratives were being created about who we are and what we are and what we are supposed to be known for. So for a very long time, that was what was happening. Now with digital spaces, we have opportunities to tell our own stories, to reshape narratives and perspectives around who we are and what we are. But how do we do that while maintaining a sense of our cultural identity and putting it in such a way where it's not stealable? Let's just say
it's inimitable.
Yes, because we have a very infectious, vibrant, all the adjectives, all the flowery words kind of culture, and right across the Caribbean. And it's always easy for somebody to come in and take. I mean, that's been happening for the longest while. So visibility is kind of a double-edged sword, because yes, you want to tell your own story, you want to be visible, you want to be on all the platforms, right? But then how do you secure that? I know that in Jamaica, for instance, for a very long time, and even now, we are not the ones who profit from our creative output for the most part. If you look at reggae music and the arts, we're not necessarily the ones who profit from it. And so that's the big that's a balance I think we have to kind of create, securing our identity, but still being creative and still being on that world stage, telling our stories and sharing our creativity. And that's the conversation I think we need to have. But I think before we can even have that conversation, we need to talk about literacy, and specifically digital literacy, because I think that is where a lot of the problems where the problems become more pronounced, you can say, because if we don't know how to secure ourselves when we put our content out there, where to put our content, small things like that people may think, oh, that's a small thing, it may add up and it may expose you and you become more vulnerable. So I think education in that sense is very important, so we know how to, as best as possible in this digital space where everything is theftable, stealable, how we navigate those spaces.
Yeah, that is so pertinent, Katie. And I know that Camille also speaks a lot about, authenticity now and in our indigenous stories. And so I know that's also very dear to Camille's heart. I want to invite Leanne and Amanda to jump in here as well as Kimberly, in terms of this notion of digital literacy and the question of intellectual property as we educate, right? Because that can be part of the educational framework, and I think it absolutely should be. But in listening to Anya's talk earlier today, she spoke about how persons had to encourage her not, to tell her story and to share her ideas. And that really it is in the Caribbean that we hold things close to our chests and say, no, I can't tell you. And that's not really how it works in other spaces where there's a lot of advancement. So talk to us, Leanne, Amanda, Kimberly, about your experiences in this regard and how you think if we are working on education, right, and these other things that are floating around it, but education is the central pillar here, how should we approach this?
Ooh, that's a big question.
I love big questions.
I honestly, where to start with it? There's so many different components to that. One thing I want to say is that all the rules are fake. They're made up. And we should throw a lot of them out of the window. Do whatever you want first. Because I do think, especially as women, there's an apprehension about, making noise and putting ourselves out there. But all those rules are made up. So throw them out and do what you want to do. So let's start with that point. And then secondly, I think the juxtaposition of just like simultaneously educating ourselves while protecting our intellectual property is just a very, very slippery. Well, there's a third leg of this, right? So educating ourselves, amplifying ourselves, and then also protecting that IP as we amplify. I think we have to be a lot more thoughtful, and a lot of the education we see right now is surrounding like content creation or ways to leverage our leverage that content or leverage whatever we're creating, our businesses, to make a profit. But I think we have to do just as much work on the legal side as well, right? Because I think we're so anxious to create sometimes that we forget that this is precious, and that it holds tremendous value. I mean, it's precious to us, it holds value to us, but I don't think we do a good enough job of aligning especially our young creators who are kind of just wanted to share whatever they have with the world, with the legal teams and legal expertise to protect what they have, and let them know that it is worth protecting and saving.
Yes, absolutely. And, that is a key part of the education, something that I've been really an advocate for, especially over the last few years. The whole idea of, creating intellectual property toolkits that can really enable our different subsectors to understand the legal ramifications in their particular subsector. That specificity, I think, is also really, really important, right? So I want to bring in Kimberly here. Kimberly is dealing with visual arts. We have, fashion design, and we have animation, and then we have the creative innovation space. Kimberly?
Yes, I would like to talk about what Kadia says. I think it was really interesting to talk about the fact that it's really important to take back our narrative in the Caribbean. This is one of the main reasons why I created Caribbean 4 years ago. And I'm really happy to say now that we've made more than 40 million views on the platform, so that Caribbean artists have a type of recognition worldwide. So it was also for me a way to show that we have people of color as an artist, women as an artist, and marginalized people. Because 4 years ago, when you were searching, for example, for a Saint-Lucian artist, you only found people from the States or Europe who just decided to go to St. Lucia and create St. Lucian artists, and decided to create arts and talk about our culture. So I think it's important to give a platform, to give a space to Caribbean artists. Most of them, they don't have websites, social media, so it's really important to have this type of platform, but also to protect them in a legal way, because as you said, it was very important. Sometimes you just discover that you have prints of your artwork and you don't have money from. So I have this type of discussion with artists from Barbados. So yeah, it's really important to take back our narrative. And to take back our narrative, we need to have our media, our spaces, and our initiative. That's why also I love Nudge Caribbean. I think it's a beautiful way to connect all the Caribbean artists, especially based in Trinidad and Tobago. And yeah, we need different type of initiative and also to connect. I was starting the conference by saying that I'm from Guadeloupe, a French-speaking island. And as a French-speaking island, we are not really connected to English-speaking island or a Spanish-speaking island. So it's really important to do a Caribbean cooperation, to connect, to be more seen worldwide, and to be a really dangerous force, I think. We have talented artists in the Caribbean. So yeah, I think we need, as a woman, to take back our power and decided to show our people, our culture, and just take back our narrative. Yeah, I think it's important.
Yes, I absolutely, Kimberly. I think that whole question, idea of taking back our narrative is, again, one that Camille really speaks to as well. It's particularly relevant as well to the Haitian context. So I think, we can all identify with the need for reclaiming the power to speak for ourselves, right? But I want to ask a question about what collaboration looks like between a group of women like this. What does it look like in space and time? What does it look like in terms of platforms? Because we all have different platforms. We all are working in different spaces, both physical spaces, geographical spaces, spatial context can be so broad and so wide. How do we actualize collaboration in this context? Who would like to jump at that?
Marielle just loves these ginormous
Yes.
questions.
I ask enormous questions, right? But these are real questions, right? Because they're real challenges that we have to face on a day-to-day basis, right?
Well,
I think
one of the things that we can do, and this is where I plug Women in Tech Caribbean, because I'm a part of that group. So of course I'm gonna plug them. But I think though what makes that group effective is the fact that we're creating, or we have the opportunity to create our own spaces where we can collaborate. The question is if we want to collaborate, because that's a different thing altogether. Saying collaboration is great, we know collaboration is great, and actually making yourself available to collaborate, or being accessible, that's a different thing altogether. So I think it's important that we create the spaces for us to have that kind of collaboration, and also take into account the different cultural aspects, because even though there are common threads that run through just about all English speaking Caribbean, there are major differences too that could be, and those cultural barriers could pose problems in terms of collaborative efforts. But I think if we all have that mindset that we can collaborate, those cultures can come together and produce something that could be beneficial, not just for us as individuals, but beneficial regionally or for our individual countries, then I think that could get us further to creating the space or the platform where we're welcoming and open to those ideas. So I think that's where we should start, because we love to talk in the Caribbean. We're great at talking. We're talkers. But when it comes to the actual execution of the thing and putting those spaces together, that's, I think, where we kind of fall down.
Right.
So, Marielle,
yes.
Could I add to that? Because that's really important what is being said there, right? So Anime Caribbean on a whole is a collaborative platform, right? So we work closely with Jamaican Animation Network, Guyana Animation Network, of course, Trinidad and Tobago Network, and the other networks around the Caribbean. But I'll tell you something. If we did not collaborate around COVID, Anime Caribbean would have died. Let me just put it straight up. We would have died. All right. So in 2018 would have been our last Anime Caribbean. So although we did it before, COVID pushed us to do it even more because it was a survival thing. And then eventually we realized, but wait, this is not just survival. This is how it should be. Because when you collaborate, what you do is, when you collaborate authentically, because not everybody collaborates authentically. Understand what I'm saying? When you collaborate authentically, you have each other's back, and you do not see yourselves as competition. And competition still isn't bad, even if you're competing in that collaborative space, and if you're doing it authentically. But what it does, it allows every nucleus in that collaborative space to get a certain support and have a certain support system that they cannot pay for. You cannot pay for that unless, of course, you have the multi-billion-dollar backing, like big business. But in our context, having the backing of the small and micro enterprise within that collaborative ecosystem, because that is what we eventually built. We have 12 small and micro enterprise. Some of them spoke here. Maria is part of that. That created the survival of Anime Carib, and now Anime Carib is no longer me and what it was before. So I just want to, commend what you said there, the speaker before. I don't have my glasses, right? I don't have my glasses on, so I don't see the name. But I certainly think it's the way forward, and it's how we can succeed even here.
I love what you speak about there in terms of the value system of collaboration, right? Because it really has to have an ethos and a code of ethics in terms of how we engage, ensuring mutual respect, ensuring that we all respect each other's IP, each other's time, etc. So,
and Dr. Barrow, it also goes back to the first question, the first conversation about visibility.
Yes.
Collaborating, if we come together, because you have a tendency, there's a tendency to split us up into Caribbean states, different Caribbean states. There's Jamaica, there's this, there's that. International organizations do it, lending agencies do it, everybody tends to do it, which is why they tend to lump us in with Latin America, right? So we're not seen as a unified block. That's one. And so it's easy to divide and split us. So for me, if we're truly interested in becoming more visible on a global stage, I think we can get there much faster and much quicker if we are of the mindset to be collaborative, to form collaborative spaces, like Camille said. But it's whether the real question is, are we serious about collaboration? And then what direction do we want that collaboration to take? What's the ultimate goal for these kinds of collaboration?
Well, I really like the idea of starting with education, because it kind of leads to so many other things, right? And it brings in the visibility, it brings in all of these different elements. I believe in really integrating the value chain. So you start with education with a vision to where this education takes you. And we each have a piece of that puzzle. So that's what makes that so exciting. It's a very plausible route. I want to bring in Leanne here, because Leanne, you're really talking about co-working spaces. And when you talked about that, it really triggered for me the idea of a co-working space in terms of a group like this, and how we work synchronously or asynchronously, to really build something and build a body of resources that can create access, as Anya said, that can, that is in the right frame of thinking, that can allow for authenticity and also for amplification of voice.
Well, yeah, and to speak, obviously, as I said, I'm not coming at it from the creativity standpoint, but one of the things that we also want to do with regards to facilitating resources is to allow people with the big ideas, with the creativity, to get on with it and help them learn about, how to protect their intellectual property. The business of startups, that back end stuff, is one of the things that like my company, Draper Startup House CARICOM, is most interested in the Caribbean, because the bureaucratic apparatus, of most of our governments, unfortunately, make it really hard to just start your business and get on with it.
Yeah.
So for us around education and around collaboration, it's about getting people to produce their ideas, and also making sure that they're safeguarded, making sure that their corporate structures are set, making sure that the business of the startup is taken care of. And that is so in terms of collaboration for someone like me who's not a creative, that's where I see like being able to form a group like the ecosystem building we're doing in Draper Startup House, where creatives can meet, legal people can meet, anyone basically that will help them form their business.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Leanne. So I want to jump back to Amanda, because I know, Amanda, you have just so much experience that, again, as I said, it was really mind-blowing to listen to you speak. So tell us where you see this going, or what you see as the possibilities, given that you have kind of seen these kinds of projects evolve.
Well, I touched on it a little bit in my session, but what I would love to see is a couple of different things. So one, on the startup scene, I would love to see a couple of IPOs coming out of the Caribbean. I would love to see the multiplicity of those companies employing lots of people across the region, right? And the impact of what that'll have of, bringing those salaries into those regions and how those will impact families and communities. Two, raising the bar as far as digital literacy across the board, as a whole across the Caribbean, because we talk a lot about startups when we talk about innovation and digital economies or whatnot, but we tend to leave the average Joe out of that, right? And there needs to be upskilling and awareness and education on every level, right? So there needs to be classes for, you know, the small and medium-sized businesses who aren't ever going to be a startup, right? To make them more tech enabled. There needs to be courses so that people who don't plan on starting a business are prepared for the jobs of the future. There needs to be a baseline of education, access to education for people who, you know, aren't interested in startups at all, but they just are a part of our world and need to be a part of the digital economy moving forward, right? Because it will impact all of us. So my hope is, for one, through Tech Beach, through my work at Tech Beach, to create a collaborative community. Like I said, Tech Beach is here to support all of these organizations and all the work that we do and amplify it on a global scale, and to, you know, use our connections, our resources, and our partnerships to amplify those things strategically in a way that makes sense, that's thoughtful, with that takes cultural considerations for the region. And then secondly, to, you know, build those startups up, give them the resources they need. You know, we realize that our accelerator program might not be the best accelerator program for certain startups, right? And so making sure we have those connections and collaborations so that we can refer them to the right incubators or accelerators or the right programs for them that are a good fit, that will actually help them reach their goals. And then lastly, just a general upskilling across the board. So, you know, my overall goal is, and the benchmark I'm setting is to really replicate the model that we, you know, me and my former partners created on the continent of Africa, and to really, you know, see those similar changes, because there's a lot of parallels and challenges in both regions that we could definitely learn from, and that we could definitely, you know, use as a roadmap for elevation.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Amanda. So the point that I'm getting to here is to ask each of you, what one or two resources would you commit to contributing to this collaborative education initiative? I'm one that I don't like to leave the table without placing something on the table that is going to remain there, because I believe in harnessing the opportunities that we do have right now and taking it one step forward. One resource. It could be a book that you recommend to persons to read. It could be a website that you recommend for persons to go take a look at. It could be one of your projects or your talks as a resource, because you are resources as well.
Well, I'm gonna take the opportunity to plug. Right now, I am in the process of planning a creator conference, a Caribbean creator conference that is scheduled to take place this August. And the main thrust behind the Caribbean creator conference is talking about, because I realized that, you know, we could talk about the fact that we don't have access to a lot of things. We talk about technology, but we really don't have access to a lot of the technology, right? And in some ways where we do have access, it's either limited or it's through some kind of third party, where and access to that third party, it's not as easy, and information about that are kept in silos and all that wonderful stuff, right? So I realized this, and what I'm wanting to do with this creator conference is invite Caribbean creators from right across the region to come together for a solution focused discussion over 2 days about how we can optimize what access we already have, how we can create collaborative opportunities, not just among ourselves in the region, but on a more international stage, and how we can get these platforms to kind of see us. Because as I said earlier, we tend to be grouped with Latin America because we're not seen as either a viable market or a big enough market. So that's the focus of the conversation over the 2 days. And so it's not just creators, but we're inviting the platforms that we do have access to, the payment processing platforms that have been a headache for us for the past how long, which is stymieing e-commerce, the progress of e-commerce and digital transactions in the Caribbean, social media platform, and other fintech based platforms. So it's coming together to see how we can find solutions to some of the problems that we have as creators in the Caribbean based creators, and what can be done to again, as I said, my end goal is always how can we monetize, how can we make more money. So that is my contribution, because I would have seen this need. And somebody said something earlier about gaps. I'm a gap filler. That's what all my projects have been about, finding what those gaps are and finding where I can fill, using my expertise to fill those gaps. And this is kind of what that is. So this is just another contribution to the creator space, and in terms of becoming more economically viable as well. So yeah, that's me.
That's an amazing contribution. That is an amazing contribution. I know each of you has an event coming up as well. So it could be simply the events and putting these events on a calendar so that persons know what is coming up, how they can get involved, and where they have to go to sign up, or centralizing registration forms so that people don't have to go searching everywhere across the ethosphere to try to figure it out on their own. That's a resource, and it's a really valuable resource. So,
Marielle, I want to add that I will be a disruptor for any of the breaking of the systems in the traditional education system in the Caribbean. So if anyone needs that kind of help, my background is also in curriculum development, but I believe in fluid modern day curriculums, and therefore I could work with persons to kind of break up the traditional methodologies, but keep the format that is important, because at the end of the day, there's a particular format for learning that you want to keep there. But in order to keep our young people engaged, we cannot continue using the old curriculums and the old methodologies. So anyone willing to, I'm here for that, to work with anyone to kind of develop those kind of things so that learning becomes much more fun, and it becomes things like problem-based rather than the typical kind of learning. So I'm here for that.
Fascinating. Thank you so much, Camille. I love that. Leanne?
Hi. So actually, I could speak to Kavia first. You're talking about your event coming up. So I work with Luhu. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Luhu, which is a fintech app working to solve the problems of P2P payments, e-commerce, for people to have easy access. People who maybe don't have websites or don't understand how to set that up. So Luhu is an app that does that. Right now, we're only rolling out in Trinidad, but we are going to extend to the rest of the Caribbean. But I'd love to be a part of that event. And it's also a resource for Trinidadian creators to look at, because you'll be able to receive payments in the app, send payments, that sort of thing that you couldn't do otherwise. And to speak to Camille, I also advise Study Space, which is going to be a game-changing education platform in Trinidad and Tobago. And we'd love to collaborate as well, Camille, and something to look out for. We haven't rolled out yet, but when it does launch, it is also going to disrupt, I think, in the education space. And then lastly, of course, Draper Startup House, which, we're really into ecosystem building in a complete way. So yes, we want creatives. Yes, we want tech entrepreneurs, but as I said, it's going to be a complete suite of the business of startups and connecting everyone both digitally and in person. Our co-working space is in Cascade in Trinidad at the moment, and we are launching also in Jamaica in a month. So look out for that. Those are my resources.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Leanne. Amanda.
Yeah, so
Tech Beach coming up.
Yeah, so a couple of different things. So first, I'll say that we have our conference, our Tech Beach retreat in Miami at the end of October. So you guys can look out for that. Save the date. It'll be the last week in October. I hope to see you guys all there. The conversations we had today kind of gets the juices flowing as far as the programming for the conference, which we are, still finalizing some of that. But I think there's some really interesting opportunities for, me to collaborate with you ladies on creating strategic events that will add the most or maximize the value that we get out of that event, and make sure that, it's not just an innovation reunion, but there are some tangible takeaways and that we actually get some work done while we're there. Secondly, we are launching a new platform at Tech Beach. You mentioned earlier about a place where you could house all of those events. And so we will be rolling that out very soon. So please subscribe, visit techbeach.net and subscribe to our newsletter so I can keep you guys abreast on when that will be rolling out. And this will be an opportunity for you guys to each individually promote your events through our platform. So we're happy to serve you guys in that way. And then lastly, on a personal plug, I recently wrote a book for non-technical founders or aspiring founders who want to build their first app. It is with my editor right now, so hopefully you will see it rolling out by the end of the year if my editor is not too hard on me. But yeah,
pre-sales there, Amanda. Are you doing pre-orders?
Yeah. So we're getting it out very soon. So we're excited about that. It's with my executive editor. But essentially the book is a workbook focused on non-technical entrepreneurs or aspiring app entrepreneurs. And it teaches you step by step on how to work with a developer to build your first app. And the reason I created it is because, since I became an app entrepreneur, I've had dozens of people reach out to me every year saying, I have an app idea, but I have no idea where to start. And so this is a little bit of my reply all to help all of those people, because I sincerely believe that some of the best ideas are in the minds of people who just don't have the education to execute them, but they have the resilience, they have the fortitude, and they have the work ethic. And so they just needed a framework and a roadmap to get there. And so I wrote this book. Like I said, it's with my editor right now. We're going through all of that process, but it'll be distributed through Simon & Schuster in a couple of months. So I will keep you guys posted on when this is.
We are certainly looking forward to that. I would love to host all of you as well in these conversations on the Meeting Place app. We are actually streaming live on the Meeting Place app right now. And but I'm sure that there's so much I can learn from your book, Amanda, because this is definitely my first foray and it's a journey. It is a journey. So Anya, let's hear from you. Anya, you have so many things. So where do we start?
Well, I'm just going to be super bold and say that I think everybody who has already spoken, I would love to invite to Nudge Caribbean is also launching an online platform in the coming months. We've actually been consulting with Kyle Maloney, who is co-founder of Tech Beach, to develop this platform as an aggregate for MSMEs in the Caribbean to be able to access learning resources and build capacity to scale their companies. And a lot of them, to Amanda's point, are generally non-technical and artisanal and creative entrepreneurs. So it is a really exciting space to be able to bring tech enablement to the micro and small businesses that are very, exploding, particularly over COVID. We've seen quite an expansion in that category. So I'd love to be able to invite each of you to potentially be expert coaches on that side. We're going to create open office hours for the community to be able to have expert guidance from a variety of different categories of need on their sides. So please let us connect on that, as well as any micro and small enterprises that you think are in need of access to a platform like Nudge Caribbean, where we support retail access into Massy stores and a variety of our partnerships on large scale retail fronts. So we are doing a continuous rolling applications through nudgecaribbean.com. So please do encourage micro and small businesses to apply there. As it pertains to anybody interested in digital fashion, the metaverse, digital wearables, NFTs in the fashion space. Kadia, I know I owe you an email. I feel so terrible that we're talking in this space. I know I'm supposed to respond to you, so I will. But anybody, independent fashion designers, people who don't necessarily have fashion background, but just want to know about NFTs, it's particularly from the spectrum of Caribbean creativity. I have both Wildflower and the Wild Tribe, which is our community there, and Island, which is our NFT community that spans all creative communities. So just reach out to me on the variety of social media platforms that you can find me, and we'll add you to those communities. And yeah, I think that in addition to, one or two other things I'm doing, those are the key resources that I can offer and invite people into the spectrum of work that we're doing in Caribbean creativity, artisanal, MSME development, and tech enablement for micro and small enterprises, and of course, digital fashion.
Amazing, amazing. I mean, what an incredible group of women we just have, gathered here this evening. So I think, Kimberly, you would be our last person to tell us what you're going to bring to the table and leave in terms of an educational resource. What is your offering? Did we lose Kimberly? I think we may have lost Kimberly.
I think we might have,
Yes. Okay. Well, I know that we are over time at this point, so I don't want to keep you ladies any longer. And I know that Amanda in particular is in a different time zone, so we are keeping her awake right now.
Yeah, it is the next day.
Amanda, we admire
I'm tired.
We admire your commitment. We really do. Ladies, you all have been an incredible panel, an incredible roundtable. I think we have a lot to take away. I think we just really need to notate this and put it, write it down so that persons can access things easily. We were talking about access. And so having it at the click of their fingers, I think is really, really important so that they can go to one space to access a range of resources. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being such good players and answering these, bold questions that I love to ask. As Annie said, you all have been wonderful, and we look forward to speaking again on other fora.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mariel, that was amazing. What an amazing group of women. I found that expertise was just on the ball. I know Katie is still here, Camille is still here, but Kimberly is coming back.
Yes.
Kimberly has some connectivity.
Difficulty.
Yeah, that was fantastic. What was your impression of the discussion?
I think that, we really do have communities and individuals who see the same needs, who are recognizing the same gaps and challenges and schisms in our domains, and who are really ready to do something about that. And I think really it is for us to come together and really harness and leverage the potential that is, in one sense, lying dormant by us not coming together to do it.
Exactly.
So I'm really excited about the possibilities. I'm really excited about connecting with these ladies on all of their platforms, but also putting together a list of all of these platforms so that our audience can, really tap into these resources at the click of a button.
Well, I think actually we had a comment from YouTube, because those of us from the Women in Tech Caribbean community know that the resource hub is one of the projects that I'm in charge of, and it speaks to this, which is really what we were talking about as well, not just with solutions that are being done by partners, but also in opportunities for intervention, opportunities for growth. I loved your idea about putting all of the events and the registration forms in one cohesive place where people can say, and maybe that's what the hub can be on top of all of that, besides just a resource links. And it's a really, really powerful idea of democratizing access that way.
Absolutely.
So it really is very powerful. This was a great evening. I'm not going to hold you because I know we have you tomorrow as well. I'm going to resist the urge to ask you questions about the meeting place, because I was just, while you guys were talking, I was browsing around inside of it. I was like, oh, this app is awesome.
We have a lot happening on the app, so I'm really looking forward to sharing it with others tomorrow.
Yeah, definitely would be a great demo to understand the full scope of this app and the various ways that people can interact and share their content, etc. So thank you so much, Mariel. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, Maria.
Okay, everyone. Just want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. It was I do know that it's a little bit of a change up from last year, where we ended all of our days at 4:00. But I actually think this works out pretty okay, because we have to respect people's days, respect our speakers, and also respect each other and our time. So this is the time that worked out best for everyone. So we're very grateful for everyone who showed up from different time zones, different countries, different technical situations. I'm very appreciative of all of the love that was shown to the Tech Summit in the past 3 days. We have a rock star schedule tomorrow with people who are focusing on networking and ecosystem building. And I know that a lot of the speakers that we had today were all actually every person that we hosted today was an ecosystem builder on their own. But tomorrow we really have people who are going to be telling stories and sharing opportunities that are connected to that. I actually find these 2 days are very similar with the type of ideas and presentations that are coming out of it. But today was our focus on the creative industry, and I think that it was a blow mind day of content. So thank you, everyone, from me and all of our partners at the International Women's Day Caribbean Tech Summit. We look forward to hosting you tomorrow for our Navigating Opportunities and Ecosystem Builders Day.